mortuaries and crematoriums in Bergamo have run out of space. Medical teams from China have arrived to help authorities fight the virus. The governor of Italy's hardest hit region made this appeal to medical students and retired healthcare workers.
I want to appeal to all of these doctors and nurses. Make yourselves available and lend us a hand in these trying times. In my opinion, through the cooperation and availability of these professional health workers, we can find important answers to the challenges we face.
Let's bring in journalist Sima Gupta, who's standing by for us in Rome. Sima, dramatic scenes there in northern Italy. The governor calling for help. Does he get the support he needs?
Well, that's what the governor of Lombardy is actually saying. I mean, he's made it very clear. Look, warning that at this stage we may reach a situation soon where they won't be able to treat the sick at all, and he's calling on the residents in Lombardy, but also all around the country, to essentially stay at home. And that's the message of the Prime Minister as well. He gave an interview to a local daily here, essentially saying that the country and the measures that they're going to take, they expect them to get even stricter. A complete block is what they're suggesting. The sports minister has already said that he's looking towards the idea of stopping all outdoor activity. That means no more any walks or jogging in the park, simply because they need to stay at home in order to limit the spread of COVID-19. There is also word that the school closure will be extended beyond April 3rd, and that's because also we've seen 43,000 violations of the lockdown measure in the space of 1 week, and the authorities and officials are imploring people to listen to the rules, stay at home, practice social distancing, only leave home when it's absolutely necessary. They're very concerned, as you said, we've seen these dramatic and immense numbers of the dead, just 475 dead with COVID-19 in the space of 24 hours. And it's because of that, I think, that the authorities believe that the next week or so is very crucial. The peak infection rate still has not been reached here in Italy.
Now, as you say, I mean, people there, also where you are further south, are faced with those incredibly dramatic images from northern Italy. Will that help to convince people to actually adhere to what the authorities tell them to do or not to do?
Well, that's what the authorities are hoping for. That's what the doctors are imploring. We see our frontline medical professionals going on social media, imploring everyone, showing them, we go to work to save lives. You do your part, stay at home. That seems to be the message that they're sending out. Here in Rome, for the most part, you do see people adhering to this. It's frustrating for people to be stuck at home. We're now into day 9 of the lockdown. Families at home with their children, having to deal with work on the one hand, as well as dealing with their children's schoolwork, trying to juggle all of that and manage. It's not easy, but if everyone does their part, as everyone keeps saying, we're all in the same boat. And so if everyone does their part, this will help limit the spread, not just up north, but also for the rest of the country that is also preparing for a rise in infections. Now, you talk about the doctors, the military has been brought in to help with that, but also they've fast-tracked the graduation of medical students.
All right, Sima Gupta there reporting for us from Rome. Thank you so much. Britain has also stepped up its response to the coronavirus. The Prime Minister announced that up to 20,000 military personnel will be put on standby. The United Kingdom is bracing for the stringent measures that will come into effect on Friday. In addition to schools, dozens of underground stations will be closed. Other public transport services will also be reduced. The government has advised people not to go to pubs and restaurants, though an official ban is not in effect. Let's cross over now to London, where DW correspondent Birgit Maas is covering developments for us. Birgit, London, of course, is a big, huge city, and it's now facing strict containment measures which the military could help to enforce. How are Londoners coping?
would say, across London, because I think a lot of people are expecting this to get even tighter and maybe into a complete lockdown. At least this is the speculation in the media and on social media. So we might really see Londoners being confined to their homes. And what you see at the moment is that people are trying to go and shop as much as they can. So if you go into a supermarket in the afternoon, the shelves are really, really empty because people are expecting that there will be shortages in the future. Of course, the authorities are saying it's because the demand is so much. It's not that there is no supply of essential items like toilet paper or even food. It's because people are buying too much and they should stop it. But at the moment, it doesn't seem that people are adhering to this advice because people are frankly very nervous of what's to come.
All right. Well, people not following advice, we've seen that across Europe now. And as of tomorrow, schools all over the country will be closed. Did Prime Minister Boris Johnson take this step too late, perhaps, as his critics claim?
Yes, there has been a lot of criticism towards the government. There was, for example, the editor-in-chief of The Lancet, a leading medical paper, and he has urged for weeks almost to look at what's happening in other countries, look at what's happening in Italy, and just act earlier and be tougher. Now, the school closures come fairly late. They're only in effect as of tomorrow, even though some schools have already closed now voluntarily, but officially, as of tomorrow, the schools will be closed. The children of public health workers, and of other people who are necessary for the infrastructure, for example, food delivery, they will be able to go into some schools, so there will be some sort of provision. But it's coming fairly late, and a lot of people, hundreds of scientists, in fact, have urged the government over the weekend to be strict. And yes, now finally it is happening.
All right, Birgit Master reporting in London. Thank you. Here in Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel has addressed the nation in an unprecedented televised speech, saying the country faces its biggest challenge since the Second World War. This, as the country's top disease control official warns that Germany could be dealing with 10 million coronavirus infections in the coming months if its citizens don't adhere to measures outlined by the government.
Berlin's most famous locations should be bustling with tourists at this time of year, but due to COVID-19, they are currently surrounded by empty streets. It's also highly unusual for a German chancellor to make a televised address, but Angela Merkel said these are extraordinary times, and she urged all citizens of Germany to seriously consider their own obligations to society.
The situation is serious. Take it seriously. Since German unification, since the Second World War, there has been no challenge to our nation that has demanded such a degree of common and united action.
She said Germany was in a good position, but warned that it could not be complacent.
Germany has an excellent health system, perhaps one of the best in the world. We can take some confidence from that. But our hospitals too would be completely overstretched if too many patients with a severe corona infection were to be admitted in a short space of time.
People in Berlin have been waiting in long queues to be tested for the COVID-19 virus. And there have been reports from other states of people having to wait in lines for long periods before they were finally tested. Across the country, Germans are having their nerves tested. New border regulations on the Polish border are causing massive traffic jams as far as the eye can see. In many places, authorities have begun extending police patrols to enforce new regulations on which shops are allowed to remain open. Cultural establishments, schools and nurseries are supposed to be closed, along with most non-grocery shops.
Our officers are on patrol around the clock with 2 groups of 100 each. In addition, we have undercover police officers, and their only mission is to enforce the regulations.
So far, the German government has resisted placing a nationwide curfew, such as in Spain, France and Italy, but that could soon change.
Countries, including Germany, are stepping up preparations to avoid the kinds of scenes that have been playing out in the hospitals of northern Italy. DW has been looking at the measures being taken in Berlin to ensure a large number of patients can be treated if and when the situation arises.
A new hospital is being erected at an exhibition centre in Berlin, one of Germany's latest measures to tackle the pandemic. It's supposed to be able to treat 1,000 people, set up with the help of the German army. In case we have shortages, we want to be able to avoid having serious bottlenecks by having something up our sleeves. A clinic which still has capacity. This is just a precautionary measure. The infection rate in Berlin is growing. Maybe this extra capacity might not even be enough. Here at the Robert Koch Institute, an ever-increasing number of positive cases are being tallied up. Just how long can the virus be kept under control? The answer is sobering.
We're talking about years that this pandemic might take to go once around the world. Pandemics travel in waves, we know that. But how quick these waves are, and when these waves that we're speaking about come, where 60 to 70% of the people around the world will become infected, that will take years. In my view, I'd say 2 years.
A crisis is coming our way, but we've been forewarned. That makes it easier, says the head of the Harvard Hill Clinic in Berlin. Howard Mutters says they're well prepared. They've recently received 10 extra respirators, and the hospital could increase its capacity threefold if things got really bad. Furthermore, he's also readied his staff.
We've also retrained anaesthetists and doctors from other specialties who haven't done intensive care duties for a long time now, so that we've managed to get a further 20 to 30% extra backup in personnel. And we could also get more from outpatient care.
The daily numbers show that up till now, there hasn't been a single person with the coronavirus ending up in intensive care there. However, it's obvious that things won't stay that way. Statistics just in show what individual hospitals across the country can handle and where beds are available. That probably couldn't have come at a better time. In fact, the head of the German Hospital Federation says there's reason for both caution and reassurance.
Findings show that about 15% of patients become so sick that they have to be treated in hospital. 4% of patients, in fact, then have to be treated in intensive care and put on ventilators.
Furthermore, the government has planned that in extreme situations, even hotels and rehab centres could be transformed into treatment areas if there's a bed shortage.
What could be a major turning point in the drive to contain the coronavirus? On Wednesday, China, the epicenter of the original outbreak, reported no new local cases of the infection for the first time since it began reporting them in January. However, there were 34 new infections imported from abroad, which threatens the progress China has made. Beijing imposed stringent restrictions on travel and movement in an attempt to prevent the virus from spreading. The total number of confirmed coronavirus infections in mainland China stands at almost 81,000. Now, Taiwan has managed to keep its infection rate far lower than neighboring countries, despite its proximity to China, where the coronavirus originated. Weeks ago, the island was expected to become the second worst hit region after China, but that didn't happen. So what did Taiwan do to change the narrative? And how is it coping with the ongoing pandemic? DW's Phoebe Kong sent us the latest from Taiwan.
Surgical masks and goggles have become part of Dr. Ho's uniform since the coronavirus outbreak began. He was among the first group of doctors in Taiwan to treat suspected patients. That was back in January, when the virus first spread from China across the strait.
Taiwan is experienced in understanding China. We know what is reliable and when we should be skeptical. And because Taiwan has long been isolated from the international community, we must take more steps ahead of the crisis and use our own judgment.
This is where he ended up sleeping. A dormitory next to the hospital set aside for medical staff like him. For Taiwan, vigilance is the treatment for a disease with no cure.
It was hard to identify misinformation at first. I was scared of spreading the virus to my family. I think this has to be a collective effort. If each of us takes very strict precautions ourselves, it eases the burden on the healthcare system.
Other than medics and military, students and teachers at high school level and below are now banned from overseas travel. Foreigners are denied entry. But containing the virus is not only about border control. Communities have found themselves on the front line. District officer of the local government, Gary Kwan, monitors individuals under 14-day home quarantine. One of his duties is to take care of their daily needs, such as delivering fresh food.
We hope to make it easier for quarantined people to stay at home to reduce the risk of contagion. If anyone leaves the apartment, will be alerted by text message and call the police. He or she may be fined.
Quarantine in Taiwan may feel service-based, but it's also stringent. Individuals are under surveillance. Telecom providers are cooperating to enable the government to track people via their mobile phones. Health officials believe technology helps contain concern and prevent panic. One example is the face mask rationing system, where people can place their order and check availability online.
New technology helps us to systemize containment policies in a transparent way. It helps the public build up a sense of trust in the government because they're well informed about the situation.
Taiwan's next step is to broaden its testing regimen.
Anyone with overseas travel history, fever, or respiratory symptoms is eligible for testing. According to research, the spread of the virus can be largely contained if 60% of infection chains are broken. We're trying our best to achieve that.
The island remains concerned about a potential massive outbreak. While waiting for a vaccine, community and government-led containment is the only way anyone knows how to fight the virus.
Let's have a look at some of the other corona-related developments around the world. New Zealand and Australia are closing their borders to non-residents and non-citizens to protect their nations from the virus. Japan's Deputy Prime Minister says holding the Summer Olympics would make no sense if countries can't send athletes, but the government says it is still working to hold the Games as scheduled. France has reported another spike in coronavirus deaths. Its death toll jumped by 89 to 263.
Heroic action that doesn't look heroic.
Russia has confirmed
Except by staying home, by
79-year-old woman who died in Moscow from pneumonia.
staying home, by
The European
not
Central Bank
going
has announced a €750 billion bond buying
the
program
bigger
to help
picture.
stabilize markets reeling from
I really, Anderson, you and I have talked about that a lot. I mean, we are all in this together. How I behave affects you, how you behave affects me, and it is a larger purpose. I have a question, Doctor, about this. We're getting further into this crisis, obviously, in the United States. I have, 3 kids at home. People have been home now for a number of days. They're social, physical distancing. It's starting to settle in that we're in this for a while. This isn't a snow day. It's a season of this. What should we be looking for in terms of mental health in our family and our friends?
It's a great question. I think the first thing to take into account is that each kid, the ages of kids means they need different things, right? The group I'm more worried about are teenagers right now. Teenagers are supposed to be leaving their homes and engaging with their peers, and they're supposed to be trying out new things, and they're going to get less of that right now. And so they need to find ways to feel their impact and to stay connected to the groups that are important to them. The middle-aged kids, the 7 to 13-year-olds, they're used to doing things where they are really learning and mastering things. Those were your soccer players and the flute players, and they've lost all of that right now. So they really need a chance to settle in and find ways to keep learning, to keep mastering things, and maybe all those things are brand new for this period of time. And the younger kids actually are the group I'm less worried about. They're actually getting more time with their parents than they usually get.
We've got a couple of questions from our audience. Jackie Stevens sent us this video from Idaho Falls, Idaho. It's a little bit fuzzy, but I think it's powerful. Let's take a look.
How do I explain to my hold or be kept by his beloved grandmother right now. My grandson recently had another grandparent pass away and it affected him deeply.
Man, that's your problem, bitch.
I am 65 with underlying health problems and
Man,
my husband is 82.
Stop it, Kenneth.
Doctor, what's your advice?
Stop it.
My advice is to explain that for right now, grandma needs a special bubble. And doesn't mean that they can't stay connected, that they can't talk, that they can't read to each other online. I don't know what the physical distance is, but young children can understand that there's a way to stay connected even if they can't be held. I think it's hard for both parties, so I think also it's important for the grandparent to give permission to the young children and help them see that they can feel the love coming back, that they have special waves, they have special winks, that they draw each other pictures. There's different ways of staying connected.
You know, I think another thing, Doctor, that's so unique about this is not a single traumatic event like a tornado or a hurricane or a fire or something like that. I mean, you're dealing with things that are going to be changes that are big changes for a period of time. I mean, maybe a long period of time. So how do you, again, assess and manage your own mental health? I mean, it's a different time frame of things that we're now looking at.
Well, I think it's actually, I would encourage people to find coping strategies that help them feel less stressful. Some of those coping strategies might not be something they want to keep for the rest of their lives, but will help them through this period of time. Being more optimistic or being able to separate themselves from the feelings sometimes, the way surgeons do. It's important that people allow themselves to cope the way they need to. And this is essentially a repeated trauma. This is going to go on for a while. And so people are going to adjust their behaviors and they're going to have to unlearn some things when we come out of this.
You've also compared what this country is going through, what a lot of people are going through, to grief in a way.
Yes.
In what way?
Well, first of all, I think I've watched it over this last week. People are going through the stages of grief. There was the week of like, well, no, it's not a big problem, to, well, I can do this, but I can't do that, to, I really saw earlier this week, acceptance, that people almost were crying, they were depressed, they had taken in the gravity of this situation. And now people are trying to figure out how they're gonna live in this new normal for a while. And I think we really need to help people understand they have the resources to do it. They haven't had to do it before, but everybody's got a lot of strengths. And spouses and partners need to talk to each other about what strengths can they bring to each other during this time.
Dr. Christian Smelcher, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Anderson, it's so interesting to sort of think about the fact that we really, we've had some advance warning on this, but not a lot of people have had time to prepare. I mean, I think about my own household, where we're still every day sort of thinking, how is next week going to be different than this week? I mean, we don't even have the luxury, I think, of sort of thinking 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance anymore. It's just a totally different way of looking at the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. In New York City, I think about it as kind of the days after 9/11, which were, obviously the worst days for this city. But there was this extraordinary kind of coming together of people, not necessarily physically, but just people on the street saying hello to each other, talking to strangers. And I've sensed some of that. It's different because of the physical distancing. But I was walking I was coming to work today. By myself, walking alone on the street, social distancing from anyone around me, and yet people would say hello and chat and sort of check in to each other. It wasn't just people saying hello to me because they recognize me. And it's a nice thing. It's nice to feel that sense of, we are all in this together.
And I do, I think that part of it's going to get stronger. I hesitate, I don't know about you, but I hesitate sometimes to describe anything that's Pollyannish at all about this, because I think there's so many people who are really, struggling with this.
It's decimating people. I mean, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I say, stay home as much as possible, and I get messages saying, well, that may be easy for you or for other people, but I don't have a job then, I don't have my money, so it's very real in terms of different things affecting people differently. But I agree with you. I think sometimes a common threat galvanizes a population, a world, unlike anything else. So again, I'm very careful not to spin this into something Pollyannish, because it's obviously terrible what's happening, but there can be some good things that come out of it.
But I also think there's a lot of businesses and government and local government officials that haven't caught up with the reality for an awful lot of people, small business owners, people who are working paycheck to paycheck, tip to tip. And they're talking, oh yeah, the check will be in the mail, as opposed to, your rent is, you have no rent, there's no more rent for you for the next month or 2 months or however long, or, there's credit card, you don't have to pay your credit cards right now, whatever it may be, there's a lag on that needs to get going. We're going to talk more about all of this in a second. Before we go to break, there's a breaking news out of California. The governor, Gavin Newsom, just moments ago announced that the entire state is now under stay-at-home orders. All 40 million Californians are to stay at home as much as possible. We'll be right back.
Something big is coming home.
Oh no.
The number one company of the year, and the whole family wins. Launch the next level watch at home on Blu-ray and digital now.
Sure, Principal is a financial company. But think of us as a protect your family as a gross company. A put enough away for college company. And a take care of your employees company. We're a help you ride the ups and downs of the market company. And when it's time to retire, we're a lead and guide you toward this all along company. Think of us as all these companies and more. Principal, retirement, investments, insurance.
After transforming to meet the challenges of a digital world, never stop. After engineering 3D imaging technologies that help doctors quickly diagnose disease, never stop. And after advancing drug delivery technology expertise to help in the fight against cancer, never stop. And we'll never stop improving the future by building on our core innovations and over 8 years of experience. Never stop. Fujifilm, value from innovation.
Buying a car from Groom is so easy, all you need is a thumb and a finger. Just scroll through amazing
No, I like the balance. I like balance.
straight up great cars.
I love the comfort. But I also like the
Your phone,
car.
it's your driveway. Thousands of
And
cars
now it doesn't
possibly
look like it's easy to do outside.
and pick your favorites. Oh yeah, she did
But I do feel control. Like very.
New customers save over $1,000 on average when they bundle home and auto with Progressive.
And now, the Progressive Commercial Halftime Show. Featuring Smash Mouth. Now enjoy the second half of the commercial.
Even renters can bundle and save. Where did that come from? Your kitchen. It's halftime.
I feel my role is supporting my husband, waiting all day being a mother and a wife. Behind the fairy tale marriage of Charles and Diana.
Old at this point, it's just thinking myself. It knows everything I'm thinking, but it knows everything I'm searching,
See that? If you're over 50, imagine you could turn back the clock on your stiff, achy joints 10, even 20 years. Imagine you could do this without products that just temporarily hide the symptoms and may have side effects. Imagine no more. Introducing Instaflex Advanced. Get a complimentary sample just by texting elbow to 369369. Instaflex Advanced is different because it targets the root cause of joint soreness and stiffness. It doesn't just cover up the symptoms. Instead, it bathes your joints in its unique combination of 5 key natural ingredients found in no other product and backed by 5 clinical studies. Instaflex Advanced is so powerful. You can have better knees in just 1 week. Maybe that's why it's the #1 selling joint CDC. You can look at your complimentary sample by texting the process to 369.
We're gonna make sure
This is the governor of California.
you can still take your kids outside, practice
practicing common sense and social distancing. You can still walk your dog. You can still pick up that food at one of our distribution centers, at a restaurant, at a drive-through. All those things we would still be able to do. And to secure that, in closing, I want folks to know that we've lost a lot of volunteers that simply are concerned and understandably are staying at home, and our food banks and others that have relied on volunteers and community spirit need a little support. And so we're going to provide that support. This shouldn't be alarming, it's humanitarian only, but we'll send out about 500 of our extraordinary leaders in the National Guard to help with the distribution and the food, again, just purely humanitarian. And we'll be announcing some very, very exciting partnerships with social media companies like Nextdoor to provide kits, information, Q&As to start to check in on loved ones, check in on your neighbors, things that you need, one-pagers so you know what kind of things you need at home to protect yourself. Those that are socially isolated, our seniors struggling with loneliness as much or more than anything else, to make sure we reach out, maybe call 5 people a day, just check in on them. So we've got a whole kit we put out with that social media company, and we're going to be doing more with AmeriCorps and Conservation Corp in the state of California. All of this in the spirit of meeting the moment, including the spirit of reaching out to those that are healthy, young, those that can make an appointment, be socially appropriate in terms of their distancing, to get blood drawn, to help those in need. Our blood banks need support. Interestingly, we are not able to provide, because we're not doing the large blood draws and fairs, the kind of capacity we've seen in the past. The good news about the social isolation, in some respects, the need in the short term has gone down, so it shouldn't be alarming, but we want to meet the moment if indeed our blood banks need additional resources as well. So again, it's a spirit of the moment. Stepping up, stepping in, recognizing our own individual capacity to meet this moment, not just relying on others, doing it safe and thoughtfully. And again, I just cannot express more appreciation for the collaborative spirit that has defined this moment across agencies, across jurisdictions, across this country, into the White House, the Pentagon, Health and Human Service agencies across this country, sharing best practices across state, and of course the CDC and their leadership. So with that, we're here to answer any questions. I've got a team assembled behind me, and I thank all of you in the state of California for recognizing this moment and meeting it.
Hospital staffing, and specifically, can you explain whether we have enough doctors and nurses and what your plans are to staff the additional medical facilities you're acquiring?
Yeah, so we've been working very collaboratively. Just yesterday, we had representatives representing the panoply of the healthcare delivery system, broadly defined from the hospitals on down, representatives of doctors and others, nurses clearly. We are currently looking not only at the assets within the system, but we are looking more broadly at scope of practice and reforms that are necessary under these circumstances. I'll give you a more specific example. One of the really ennobling and incredible things about our public employees in the state of California is we've been putting out a survey to those employees and asking them if they have skills in other areas and their willingness to step up and say, I happily work outside of my job description. I'm happy to lend a hand. And so we've got nurses and doctors and paramedics, all part of the California workforce in different capacities, and we're pulling them in to help supplement. Also working with our federal partners at HSS as it relates to adopting a staffing regime and strategy that can help support not just those mobile field units, but also potentially to help us with these hospitals that are coming online. I don't know if Dr. Galley, you want to amplify and fill in any blanks as it relates to additional thoughts related to that.
Sure. We continue to work, just as the governor said, with our partners across the state in the healthcare professions, including working on the ratios and different things to make sure we can staff up. We're looking at individuals who've recently retired to come back and support these new facilities and existing facilities. We know that some healthcare professionals who are not as busy in their outpatient practices, nurses, doctors, nurse practitioners, other healthcare professionals can step up and are willing to join us as we build up this capacity in new facilities and increase our capacity in our existing facilities. So it has felt, and it continues to feel, like a whole, all hands on deck mission. We're having great conversations with all of our partners across the state. The willingness is enormous. We are daily receiving emails and calls with the willingness to step up and help. We know this is going to be a challenge, but we believe Californians together are going to meet it. Next question.
Hi, Governor. Thanks for doing this. Do you have a sense of how long the statewide shelter-in-place order is going to last? And then, you talked about the state has been modeling and has been kind of seeing where this has been going for days now. Why now did you decide to issue this today? Was there a specific number or thing that changed that made you take this extra step?
No, I think we've been very fluid, as you know, on a daily basis. We've been adjusting to changing conditions, and not only here in the state, but changing recognition across this country and an understanding of what's happening in other parts of the globe that require us to adjust our thinking, quite honestly, on an hourly basis, not just a daily basis. So based upon the meetings we had yesterday with our healthcare professionals, based upon the conversations we had this morning with fellow governors, President, CDC, and others, based upon our models, based upon our trend lines, based upon some new information that came in as it relates to those models from Johns Hopkins and among others, we felt it was appropriate to raise the ante and do what we can to bend that curve. Let me remind you, the numbers we put out today assume that we're just along for the ride. We're not. We want to manipulate those numbers down. That's what this order is all about. The projection said we will have. But if we don't live by projection, again, I began this by saying we are not victims of fate or circumstance. The future is something inside of us. It's our decisions that will determine those projections. And that's why we decided today to make this decision.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, they can.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Governor. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us tonight. We're hearing a lot from state workers that they're still being told to come into work, and you touched on this a bit last night, but does the state have the capability to have workers telecommute and the numbers needed for social distancing?
Yeah, that's being worked on in real time. We had a remarkable conversation last night with our largest public employees union, a tele-town hall, and we talked about so many of the essential services that are provided in the state. Let me put that in perspective. When you consider police and fire and those in our corrections industry broadly defined, we're over 50% of the workforce operating in some form of 24-hour support. So it's deeply defined as essential. Those in non-essential positions that have skills are being surveyed to see if they can provide essential capacity and fill in voids that may exist or persist throughout our system. But when we look across the panoply of services, overwhelming majority of those services we believe we can meet based upon that criteria, and that criteria is being processed in real time also in terms of making the actual determination to your question around how many individuals can telework, how many people don't have that kind of broadband access or otherwise are not positioned because of their particular job to get any big benefit from telework. So all that is being processed, and we're working very collaboratively with our teams in HR to make all that real. But it's a constant, never-ending adjustment.
Thank you, Governor. Has the Trump administration agreed to send the equipment you requested, and what exactly has the federal government agreed to provide California?
Well, we're expecting the delivery of that national stockpile, those numbers that I gave you just a moment ago, that the Trump administration agreed to, and they delivered. Was on the call with the president and the vice president specifically about the first tranche of those requests. They gave 25% of those requests as they're processing these requests all across the country will arrive, we believe, in our West Sacramento warehouse and then be distributed throughout our system. Again, that's just the first order, one of 4. The other order is apparently on the way as well. And so we were very grateful to hear of that. I'm very grateful that the first assets are now about to be delivered to the state and then distributed throughout the state. John, you there?
I'm there. Anybody hear me?
Perfectly.
Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Fantastic. One more time. I want to go back to the projection in the letter that you sent to the president of the $25.5 million, which I understand, as you said a moment ago, is the projection if nothing else happens. At least one of my colleagues has talked to an epidemiologist.
Oh, look at this. Look who's back. Look at Tucker Carlson, apparently.
America was better prepared than ever for coronavirus. You didn't do any of those things. The news report this afternoon, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee sold more than $1 million in stock in mid-February after learning how devastating the Chinese coronavirus could be. He had inside information about what could happen to our country, which is now happening, but he didn't warn the public. He didn't give a primetime address. He didn't go on television to sound the alarm. He didn't even did an op-ed he'd written just 10 days before, claiming America was, quote, better prepared than ever for coronavirus. He didn't do any of those things. Instead, what did he do? He dumped his shares in hotel stocks so he wouldn't lose money, and then he stayed silent. Maybe there's an obvious explanation for what he did. If there is, he should share it with the rest of us immediately. Otherwise, he must resign from the Senate and face prosecution for insider trading. There is no greater moral crime than betraying your country in a time of crisis. And that appears to be what happened. We'll have more on the story tomorrow.
changes. And as soon as she go in that briefing, dump right after the briefing. What a
Although, if I put myself in that situation and I had inside information, I would have done the same.
No, you wouldn't. That's illegal.
If they can prove it.
But that's a law. You can't.
If they can prove it.
But then we can't trust you for the next event then.
Infrastructure workers, meaning this isn't going to affect everybody the same way. They will keep state systems up and going, okay? But everyone who is living in the state, other than essential operations employees, will be designated by the state. What is that going to mean? People who keep essential services, healthcare workers, and whatever the governor and the public health officials determine they must keep going. Sanitation, there are going to be different things that you see. People who keep power in service. But otherwise, they are ordered to stay at home or at their place of residence, except, and this is going to be the key language, except as needed to maintain continuity of operations in the federal critical infrastructure sectors as outlined. So that's what I was referring to. He had to carve that out, and he did. Now let me look at this to see if there is an end date on this. It's infrastructure. They've identified 16 critical areas where they have to keep them up and running. That's a good sign for the residents of New York. That those will be kept intact, and they'll work with staffing those situations to preserve people's safety as best they can while preserving the services. The supply chain must continue. Californians must have access to necessities, food, prescriptions, healthcare. When people need to leave their homes or places of residence, whether to obtain or perform the functions above, or to otherwise facilitate authorized necessary activities, they should at all times practice social distancing. So, can you go get food? Yes. Can you go get medicine? Yes. Can you do things that you must do? Yes. Can you do what they're doing behind Dan Simon right now? No. Why? Because you will unwittingly spread the virus even if you don't know you have it, even if you don't have symptoms. So Dan, now we go from the can to what the realities are. What is it looking like on shelves in the area where you are in San Francisco?
Shelves in storage, Chris, you know, when you go to the Walgreens,
Yes.
the shelves are bare. I mean, you can't get paper towels anywhere. You can't get Clorox or all the cleaning supplies that you need. So really people, stocked up well in advance when they had a sense that this might come down. But Chris, you think about what this shutdown is going to mean for California. This is one of the largest economies in the world by its own right. And it's going to come to a grinding halt. Already in San Francisco, all of the quote-unquote non-essential stores are already closed. You can't go to a Gap or anything like that. I mean, it's just crazy what's happening. And now you're talking about the entire state, 40 million people. What's that going to do to the state economy?
It's going to tank it. But this is obviously a balancing test for the governor in California, as it's going to be for governors all over this country. You have to figure out your only weapon against the virus is to control how many cases you get. And it is the first state to do this way. But Dan, you're raising a good question. And it has to be put in the right context. What's it going to do to all over the country? We have them all stay with CNN.
The network has to be prepared to absorb whatever it's going to come its way.
We're always preparing.
Make sure that the network is working all the time.
But Dan, you're raising a good question. And it has to be put in the right context. What's it going to do to the California economy? It's going to tank it, just like every economy is going to take a big hit. The question is, at what point is it worth injuring economic activity to improve the chance at long-time sustainability of health in that state. That's a call the governor had to make. We will be judged by it, and we will see its effects playing out day by day, week by week. Dan Simon, thank you very much. Reporting is also going to be something that we understand that state governments and hopefully the federal government will recognize it as an essential value. And we are taking our own risks. We're all in this together, okay? I have no immunity to a virus any more than you do. We have to take our jobs seriously right now. You need us as much as ever, and we have to take care of our own as much as ever. That's at home, that's here at work. We're figuring out how to do the job just like you have to figure out life one day at a time. If we stay together, we will get through it together. There are headlines popping all over the country. We have them all. Stay with CNN.
The network has to be prepared to absorb whatever is going to come its way.
We're always preparing.
Make sure that the network is working all the time.
We're relentlessly committed to the network, so in times like this, we can all stay connected to work, school.
The wind blows, we would only hold on to it. Our kids, into the sun, we need someone to lean on. Lower kids, into the sun, no, we need somebody to lean on. All we need is someone to lean on.
A live bookkeeper is helping customize QuickBooks.
On Digital Now, on Blu-ray Tuesday.
When I noticed my sister moving differently, I didn't know what was happening. She said it was like someone else was controlling her mouth. Her doctor said she has tardive dyskinesia, which may be related to important medication she takes for her depression. Her ankles would also roll and her toes would stretch out. TD can affect different parts of the body. It may also affect people who take medications for bipolar disorder and schizophrenia.
We were so relieved to learn that today TD is manageable.
Learn more at talkabouttd.com.
Do you recall not long ago we would walk on the sidewalk all around the wind blows, we would only hold on to it. Our kids, into the sun, we need someone to lean on. Lower kids, into the sun, no, we need somebody to lean on. All we need is someone to lean on.
A live bookkeeper is helping customize QuickBooks for me.
Okay, you're all set up.
Thanks. That was my business key. This one's casual.
Get set up right with a live bookkeeper with Intuit QuickBooks.
Before Nexium 24-Hour, Anna could only imagine a comfortable night's sleep without frequent heartburn waking her up. Now, that dream is her reality. Nexium 24-Hour stops acid before it starts for all day, all night protection. Can you imagine 24 hours without heartburn?
For my kind, there was one place we were never allowed to go. Your world.
What are you gonna do?
Show this world for what it really is.
Have you ever seen the emerald waters of Barbados? Or seen a butler walk on water? Sandals Barbados, where exclusive is always inclusive. Call 1-800-SANDALS today.
No matter what I wore, I worried someone might see my bladder-leak underwear. So I switched to Always Discreet Boutique. Its shape-hugging threads smooth out the back, so it fits better than Depend. And no one notices. Always Discreet.
Are those your bank fees?
Yeah, first there's the overdraft, and then the maintenance fee, which I don't know what they maintain.
You should start banking with Chime. There are no hidden fees, and I get paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. It's super easy. Start banking with Chime today at chime.com.
Being prepared is a part of who you are. But it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
All right, we're living this all together. There's breaking news out of California. The governor there has just issued a stay-at-home order for the entire state. This is a huge deal. California, 1 in every 8 of us lives in that state. He's the first governor to do something like this, and it is not a sign of weakness. It is a recognition by this governor that this is his greatest weapon against the virus. If we can stop it from spreading, 4 out of 5 cases of coronavirus, I just learned this, listen to this, 4 out of every 5 people who get it got it from someone who didn't know they had it. You see why people are getting so pissed off about the spring breakers and not taking these protocols seriously? You don't even know you have it, but you can be spreading it. And this isn't some horror movie. You can take practical steps and cut that down in a big way. That's what the governor's call is about. Now, look, it's a big call for him to make. It's going to have huge economic impact. So what you have to balance that with is the understanding of what the upside is. Now, I can't find a date when this ends, but we did find language from the governor saying this isn't going to be martial law. This isn't going to be, he said, I don't believe the people of California need to be told through law enforcement that it's appropriate just to home isolate to protect themselves. So you can still go out and buy food, get essentials, but he doesn't want you socializing. He doesn't want you doing those things, at least for the foreseeable future. I can't get you an end date. In Los Angeles, the mayor there had done it. Now that will be superseded by what the governor did. Obviously, the governor is above mayor. But there was like April 15, April 17, and we're seeing that consistently. Measures are somewhere in the several weeks to a month range. Why? We don't know. They don't either. Okay? They will say that on graphs, you see that about 4 to 6 weeks, you see a peaking in cases. But there are a lot of variables that go into that. For instance, another headline for you. In New York, we had a doubling of cases overnight. Well, what does that mean? Well, the cases doubled. Fact. But they're still not testing in any real way. Are they playing catch up? Do we believe this number is accurate? It can't be. They have a huge backlog of tests. I'm going to bring you a family later on that you're going to meet that you may have read about called the Fuscos, F-U-S-C-O. They're from New Jersey. This is one of the most heartbreaking things I've heard to come out of coronavirus. Their family has been savaged. They've lost 4. It's a big family. There's 11 kids. It's like 40 grandkids and cousins. Make it like 70. It's like an archetypal big Italian family. They've been savaged by this. They can't get test results. They have 20 of them in quarantine right now. So we're so far behind on testing that all the numbers you get are lagging. You may see a little bit of an uneven trend, but it's going. Now, to bring in some perspective on this, Dr. William Schaffner, okay, an infectious disease specialist, CDC advisor. Doctor, thank you so much. People are so worried about what they're learning, and it's so valuable to have you to put some context to it. So first, with what I just said about the cases, isn't it a fair assumption that given the lag in testing and the relative inability to keep up with the flow with testing, that any numbers we get have to be, if anything, on the bottom side, right?
Oh, that's absolutely right, Chris. We're not testing nearly as many people as we would like to test to give us a sense of actually how many people with the infection are out there. I'm absolutely amazed at Governor Newsom's order. Really impressed. In fact, when I heard it a minute ago, I had to punch myself in the chest to get my heart started again. I never anticipated something like that would happen. Here in Nashville, we're actually almost there on a voluntary basis. This morning when I went into work, the traffic was less than 10% of what it normally is. There are lots of businesses closed, sports venues, entertainment facilities, bars, all closed already. We're kind of doing that virtually already.
So let's talk about why, Doctor. So it's serious. Obviously, we know that now. The country's never seen anything like it. But that doesn't mean it's easy to understand either, even when explained. It's one of the biggest economies in the world. Why does everybody have to stay in? Why don't you just quarantine the vulnerable and the elderly and let the young work? What does this mean in terms of balancing economic impact and health? How is something like the order the governor just gave in California something that is commendable to you as a physician?
Well, you said it absolutely right, Chris, a few moments ago. It's everything we can do to dampen the expansion of this outbreak. We want to press down on the epidemic curve to spread it out so that when people are sick and really do need care, we don't get a tsunami wave of them coming in all at once. If we spread this out, we can manage the very sick. And of course, another reason is that everybody, no matter what the age, we're learning this, children and young adults can be spreaders. Nobody wants to be a dreaded spreader, and that will spread the virus to the most vulnerable. So what we're trying to do is everything we can, this is our great big cannon, this is our weapon, to try to interrupt, or at least profoundly reduce, I should say, transmission of this virus from one human being to another.
I don't have to stay home, I'm not sick. Your response?
I think you could be a spreader, you could pick it up and send it to someone else.
And not even know you have it.
And not even know you have it. That is absolutely right. That's why we all have to do this together and all make our own contribution, as uncomfortable and disturbing as it is, for a short period of time to try to dampen this outbreak.
Let me ask you one question, one step sideways, then I want to get back to you about medical equipment. Do you remember, what do you think in your life experience is the last time you've seen this country asked to do something that involves this type of surrendering the me to the we?
Well, we've had a number of occasions where we've had other emerging infections. The 2009 influenza swine flu outbreak.
We didn't do anything like this.
No, nothing like this. Nothing like this. We've had an epidemic of anxiety, which we currently have, when HIV first came on the scene. That got everybody very, very anxious.
And we
have
handled
two
it
outbreaks. Yeah, well, we have two outbreaks, as you well know. The coronavirus outbreak and the outbreak of anxiety, both of which we're trying to deal with.
Doctor, let's do this. Let me take a quick commercial here, come back, and I want to talk to you about capacity. What it means, because it's not just beds, it's ventilators, and what you know about what we have, and how the richest country in the world doesn't have enough masks for people to wear, gloves. How can this be? Schaffner will give us some great context on this right after the break.
It's the easiest because it's the cheesiest. Craft for the win-win.
During an emergency, a network becomes a critical line of communication, connecting first responders to technology and to each other. FirstNet is the only officially authorized wireless network built with and for first responders. It's highly secure, eliminates throttling, and cuts through the clutter of commercial traffic. It's the help you need to help the people who need you.
Mornings were made for better things than rheumatoid arthritis or psoriatic arthritis. When considering another treatment, ask about Xeljanz XR, a once-daily pill for adults with moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis or active.
dinners for under $20. And now, enter this exclusive TV coupon code at checkout to save up to 40%. That's readers.com.
I'm Sarah Seidner in Seattle. This is CNN.
All right, I want to bring back Dr. William Schaffner. He's an infectious disease specialist and CDC advisor. You can't see, Doctor, but my desk is filled with all the latest information on what we just learned about California. This is the first governor to do something like this, statewide stay at home. Not martial law. He didn't say, he said people don't need law enforcement to tell them to do this. He did say it was open-ended. He did say that 16 or 17 different areas of essential services had been identified to keep the state going. He did say that you can go out in the executive order, that you can get your food, you can get your medicine, you must do your necessities, but to keep social distancing when you do the same. You celebrate this because you say you agree with the idea that it's wrong-headed to see these types of measures as proof of defeat, that the virus is getting us. This is the best weapon against us. So now you get to why we want to mitigate the number of cases other than common sense. Less is better. Our hospitals are going to be over capacity pretty much everywhere this hits. The question is, why, doctor? Why does the richest country in the world not have enough masks, gloves, gowns, ventilators? Why?
So let me give you 3 quick reasons, Chris. The first is that about 20 or 30 years ago, we decided that we would not over-hospitalize. When I was an intern and went to bed at night, I knew that there were always empty beds in the hospital, so I would be awakened to take care of a patient who was admitted in the middle of the night. A lot of the times now, our hospitals are absolutely full. So we have underbuilt hospital beds because they're very expensive. Number 2 is globalization. Sure, we build ventilators here and we make masks in this country, but we've outsourced a lot of that around the
I'll tell you. You know, and it's not just the president. We've seen it on local levels and places also. These false promises.
Leadership and organization and coordination. And we don't have to go into it in great detail here, but it hasn't been optimal, shall we say.
Right. It's not time to play politics, of course. Although I have to tell you, you know, and it's not just the president. We've seen it on local levels and places also. These false promises.
Back in 2009, but putting those things into place requires leadership and organization and coordination. And we don't have to go into it in great detail.
Fighting back. But then Tony Fauci, Dr. Fauci on our special just at time. And then you hear some more context. 2005, then as recently as a year or so ago, there was modeling done about how to handle a pandemic at the federal level. So the idea that they had no idea like something like this could happen is not exactly true. What's your understanding of how much thinking went into doing what was right in a situation like this before it actually hit?
Well, there's been an awful lot of pandemic planning that's gone on, and we have learned from Ebola, from Zika, from influenza, swine influenza back in 2009. But putting those things into place requires leadership and organization and coordination. And we don't have to go into it in great detail here, but it hasn't been optimal, shall we say.
Right. It's not time to play politics, of course. Although I have to tell you, you know, and it's not just the president. We've seen it on local levels and places also. These false promises that things are going to happen. Today, the president said, we're fast tracking this drug through the FDA. They call it Trump speed, one of his, which I found really ironic, given how slow we were to get into this situation and start fighting back. But then Tony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, on our special just before this show, had to say, there is no magic cure. We don't know about any drug that will work. There are a few we think may work. We don't know anything for sure. Who's right, Fauci or the other message?
Let me just say, we all in infectious diseases and public health have an enormous confidence in Tony Fauci.
What you said?
So when we think about this now, what should people's expectations be? Are we anywhere near having a drug that can cure the bad cases?
Actually, treatment, I think, is likely to come if everything works well sooner than a vaccine. because we have a number of previously known drugs where we know a lot about their safety issues and how they work. So we don't have to make a new drug. We're testing old known drugs in this situation. And there are plenty of patients in whom we can do clinical trials and get solid information. So that may come forward in a matter of months. Developing the vaccine will still take longer, even though we're doing a full court press on that.
Dr. Schaffner, thank you so much for being with me at such an important time. I'm sure we'll be speaking again, probably often, so thank you. Thank you for the advice, and please stay healthy.
Hang in there, Chris.
All right, so that's the medical side of it. That's the big headline. How is this playing in California? We have the mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti. He's going to join us right after the break. Remember, he did this for Los Angeles. He put an end date on it, though. April 13th or 17th, I forget, I don't have time to read it. But I'm gonna have time to talk to him about it, and he's gonna give us the answer and what he makes of this much bigger move, the first of its kind in the country. All of California ordered stay at home, 40 million people. Next.
"5G will change business in America. T-Mobile has the first and only nationwide 5G network. And with it, you can shape the future. We've invested $30 billion and built our new 5G network for businesses like yours. While some 5G signals only go a few blocks, T-Mobile 5G goes for miles. No other 5G signal goes farther or is more reliable in business. Tomorrow is in your hands. Partner with T-Mobile for business today."
I'm Araceli, and I am a real Premier Protein fan. I started my health journey at 41. I didn't realize 40 was so life-changing. For me, it was like a new beginning. The taste of Premier Protein helps me not feel deprived from sweets. I drink it every day. I cook with it. Premier Protein is my thing. I love it.
With 30 grams of protein, 160 calories, and just 1 gram of sugar. Premier Protein. Too good to be good.
Everywhere I look, I see light and shape. And some shapes are just more beautiful than others.
I think about lots of things when I try.
Somebody said that the women jails must be strict as fuck because we never see videos of women in jail. He's like, you ever see a guy smoking weed in jail, dancing in jail? He's like, stupid.
Game over. Look at Jasmine.
Honest. After you're being honest, then number two is how you talk to any woman you meet, being a man. I'm talking from a man's perspective. And number three is in the bedroom game, are you okay? So if you have these three things, you always will never cry. Yo soy, ¿cómo estás? Te extraño hablar español. Ciao, malo. Oh, no. I don't know, some reactions. If you're new here, please hit that like button, man. We're just trying to be honest with you guys. And
what's up, people? Welcome back to the Still Unnamed podcast show.
informational, fireside chat, quarantine chronicle, corona chronicle, coronatine, I think someone called it, Oval Office, cigars in the pussy. I don't know what this thing is gonna be, alright? But
Were you
we'll figure it out.
Ovaltine or Nesquik?
Say again?
Were you Ovaltine or Nesquik?
Nesquik, dog, come on from Manhattan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was on a Nesquik.
Let's go!
Sometimes we splurge a little bit.
boys out here, you know?
We splurge.
What's up, everybody? Well, first of all, I remember I said last episode that we're gonna start this out with a little sip of something, okay? It could be coffee, it could be tea, it could be water. I don't give a fuck what it is, but we gotta do something together. We gotta cheers. Now I know some of you guys are watching, like, you know what? Fucking it, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna wait to get to the information. No. Pause the fucking episode. Go pour something, okay? We're all sipping this shit together. I don't give a fuck. So here's to it. What are we drinking? Some Clase Azul today? Okay, I would show, but listen, we're not sponsored by anything. I just want to let you know. This was given to us by the Tempe Improv. Hopefully they're still in business at the end of this. But let's have a little sip and then get right into it, okay? Delicious. They canceled spring break, everybody. Did you hear that? They canceled spring break finally. Finally, Florida, the governor, I think Rick DeSantis or something his name is, I'm not exactly sure, but he said, okay, spring breakers go home. And people, you know, have been reacting to this whole spring break thing lately on the internet. I've been hearing this. Why aren't they worried about Corona? Do you think any kid on spring break is afraid of an infectious disease? Do you think that even goes through their mind? You must not know what spring break is about, okay? Spring break is about debauchery. It's about regrets. It's about doing the things that you will never tell your husband or wife in the future. I remember once on spring break, we were in, I believe, Rosarito, Mexico, and I was in a jacuzzi with about 12 other people, and this girl made me finger her in front of those 12 other people. Thank God for the bubbles. And by made me, I mean, just asked me to finger her, and I did. She didn't force it in any way, shape, or form. It was Mexico, baby. It was spring break. That's what we did, okay?
Mexico, baby.
That's what it is, okay? Clase Azul. You know what I mean? I knew we had tequila here for a reason. I didn't know when it was going to come full circle, but it came full circle. And by full circle, I mean like that. You know, but yeah, so the crazy thing about spring break is, if you were like an evil mastermind and you had to find the perfect way to spread a pandemic, you would do it at spring break, right? Because what spring break is, it's people from all around the world, especially, or specifically America, but all around the world people come. And they go to one specific location and they all just rub bodies and exchange bodily fluid for a week straight. And then they fly back to their respective cities, countries, etc. Okay? So now they've all gotten Corona, and they go spread it to those places who may not have Corona yet. It is the perfect recipe for a pandemic. I'm like shocked that they even let it go on in the first place. And I think the only reason they stopped it because there was enough like drunk white kids going, "Oh, you fuck about Corona, I just won't drink the beer," or whatever that joke is that we've heard a million times. So we'll see what happens with the pandemic when all those kids get back home. I seriously think you're going to see it pop up in places where it doesn't exist just yet. Like I think Virginia or West Virginia doesn't have it. I was reading that, and I think it has something to do with like if you fuck your family members, it goes away. That I think that is the cure. Most people aren't willing to test it, you know. But your mom's not as hot as mine. Bro, it's like Clase Azul. I don't know what to tell you. So, but yeah, so that's happening. And you know, some great news, actually, some big news. This might be breaking news. Matter of fact, we got tests, baby. That's right. We got Corona tests. There's this company called Everlywell, and they've developed a test. And it's an at-home test. You get the results in 48 hours. But essentially what they can do is they can pre-screen you online, right? So you go online. Excuse me, we're burping. Pre-screen you online. You go online. You go to everlywell.com. And we'll put like a link somewhere in the bio. Or we won't. I mean, if you need the link in the bio, you don't care about your corona. Do not, just misspell it a few times until you go to the website with the test.
That is true.
Right? It's not like you're buying a corona and you're like, everlywell.org, fuck it. Breathe or don't breathe. Everlywell, you'll figure it out. But basically, they'll pre-screen you for the symptoms online. Make sure they think that you have what you need to have corona, and then they'll send you a kit. It's no different than getting like boner pills, right? You ever got boner pills online? You got some blue chew or something like that, or you ever got some hair stuff, and that's right. Same stuff. You go online, or back in the day when you would have to get like a prescription for weed. Remember that?
This nigga's giving up
Go
DNA
online to the doctor, and the doctor you'd be like, yeah. Same thing, only with corona and dying. Are you dying? Yeah, you don't get it. So you can do that right now. And usually they don't allow this type of stuff. It's easier with like the boner pills and weed or those types of things because it doesn't have any like in vitro testing. That's what I was always wondering. I was like, why don't we just do this with every single drug? And the reason is because when you have more serious drugs and more serious illnesses, you actually have to like do something. You have to swab yourself for this. And when it comes to prescribing a serious drug or like giving a serious medical kit, they can't just give it to anyone. Because I could go to Alex's nose, I could swab it and send it in his mind. They could be like, oh yeah, you do have a big black dick. What? And to all our new listeners, Alex is black. We need to every once in a while flash you so they know. Anyway, class a azul. Cheers again, ladies and gentlemen. But it's $135. So for real, if you think you have it, if your parents think they have it, if your grandparents think they have it, if they're still alive, make sure that they go to everlywell.com. The fucked up thing about this is that the people that this could potentially kill, those people 70, 80 years old, will never be able to go to a website. So somebody young, please help them. And I knew that when I said that about people in the building, man. We've been reaching out to people in my building, trying to get them groceries, get them whatever they need, and also just checking in to see if they passed away and we can get their apartment for cheap. There are ways that you have to take advantage. We're coming in hot today. We're coming in very hot today.
They're also trying to find out if they die.
But yeah, so there's that. There's also another really cool idea that came out as a way to try to control corona. And there are reports of this coming out from different places. I think Israel was trying it, but it requires giving the government complete access to your phone. Now, I know that freaks a lot of people out, and you get into this government overreach discussion, and we can have that a little bit because I think that's an interesting one. But I thought it was a pretty brilliant idea because what they're trying to do is this. They're trying to see who has corona, and once they confirm someone that has it, they'll use their phone and your phone and other people's phone to see who that person with corona has come in contact with, right? So corona is much different than like a sexually transmitted disease because you can't use your phone to prove you have had sex with somebody, right? You can use your phone to prove you've been around someone, and all you need to do to get corona is be around someone, right?
Yeah.
So if we know that there's somebody who has it, we track their phone and we say, oh, they played in a basketball game with these 5 other people. We should text them and say, yo, you've been around someone that has had corona. You should get yourself checked. And then we can expedite your test because we know you've been around someone with it. So the probability that you have is much higher than some random person on the internet that says, I have the sniffles, I think I have corona. What are those people called hypochondriacs or something that always think they're sick? So I think it's a kind of brilliant idea. I'm also the type of person that really doesn't give a fuck if the government has access to my phone. And I know there's plenty of arguments about why they shouldn't have access to your stuff. And there's a lot of validity to those arguments, because people are right to say, hey, that is government overreach. And I think the problem, I'm not about to make a defense for government overreach or not. I'll give both kind of arguments. I understand people's desire to be free or have freedom, right? And I think if you look at this thing from both angles, you'll find good people and bad people on both sides. So it's basically people versus government. People want to be free, right? And the people assume the government wants to be tyrannical, right? They want to be dictatorship, they want to control everything, right? That's one way of looking at it. The government's way of looking at it, I think, is, hey, we don't want chaos. We don't want to be tyrants, but we don't want chaos. So we have to you have to exhibit a little bit of control over the people, right? So that people don't go crazy. And then they say things like, hey, how about a little bit of control? How about like guys aren't allowed to pull their dicks out in public? And then the people go, well, I want you to control me, but all right, fine, no dicks in public. You know what I mean? That's a, well, if you got it like that, you want to show. You never see any dicks in Chinatown, no. But yeah, so we agree there's certain rules that you just shouldn't do. There's certain things you should do, certain behaviors you should do. You shouldn't be completely free. We agree complete freedom is wrong. But on the other hand, complete control is also wrong. So the conversation really isn't between freedom and control, it's between the middle ground and where we want to end up, right? If we're on the 50-yard line, everything's probably good. If we get to the 40, to the 30 over here, maybe it's getting, we're pretty free. If we get to that 10, dicks are coming out, right? And on the other end, if we get to the 10, if it's too close to tyranny, now you're in one of these dictatorships where they're just killing people who say anything bad about the government. Right? And the reason why access to your phones is so important is because, let's say the government wants to control not good groups, bad groups.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Dropping Hits, and I'm back with another episode of 60 Days In, Season 6. And we're going to get into the video, which is, what is it? Special Ops. Regular participants is over. Now he brought in some other people like undercover detectives and other COs. Should be interesting. We did watch this on my live stream, and it was it's going to be good. It's going to be good. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me remind you guys I do stream on Twitch every Thursday. Love to see you guys there. Link is below in the description. And before we get into the video, I do want to give a shout out to Luke Skype Stalker, who sent me this letter opener. I went to go check the mail in my P.O. box to see if I got any mail, and I was surprised to get this. He left a message, and he said this is a letter opener for all the fan mail you'll be getting. It also doubles as a shank in case you need a ventilated bitch. Oh, this is great, man. Thank you very much. And if any of you guys want to send me some fan mail or anything, P.O. box is down below in the description. Sorry this video is a little late. I usually do these videos on the weekend, but this past weekend was my mom's service, so I took time to myself and surrounded myself with family and friends. And again, it's rough, but we're getting through it. And I appreciate all the support from you guys as well. I read all the comments, and I'm very grateful. So thank you guys. Salute to each and every one of you. So now that we got all that out of the way, let's drop right into it.
Since phase 1, we've made a lot of drastic changes.
Yeah, fix some damn doors.
This change is all the locks have been fixed.
There you go.
Now we've installed the new locks, which actually have a light that indicates that the door is secure. So if this,
why did you need participants to go
turn green to fix the lock secured back?
That's what I don't get.
Also, we placed a supervisor there in the intake area to store up booking. Everyone gets the full stripped down treatment to ensure that we're not missing anything.
What kind of jail are you running?
Happening on a regular basis, so we're seeing to it now that it's happening 100% of the time. We've seen to it our correctional officers are better equipped. We're sending in 4 more law enforcement professionals for 30 days to test these changes and see how we can further improve our facility. Failure is not an option, so we're sending in the big guns.
My name is Donovan. I'm an narcotics detective, and I've been a police officer for a little over 12 years. Taking bad guys off the street really gets my adrenaline going.
My name's Heather. Currently, I am the commander of operations of the county jail. If someone were to attack me in jail, I would go after them.
My name is Vanessa. I'm a firefighter, and I have 8 years in fitness. I do not take from anybody.
Please, I'm a retired sergeant.
Oh, they're talking spicy. They talking spicy. I want to see them. Ooh. Oh, they talking spicy.
To just observe and report. We're looking for get our hands dirty, to get involved, and to show us where our problems are.
Mew.
I wonder how long it was in between phase 1 and now.
Huh?
That's in a few months.
My fat ass.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Nice
to meet you.
So where you from?
Utah. By yourself?
All these fuckers now. They got the officers now. This is the officer season now.
Hey, how you doing?
They go to Matt officers.
Hey, Heather, how are you?
I know he hates it.
He's
like fucking
Well, Ben told me someone would have nicer hair than me, so we might have to do something about that.
This bitch built like a cop.
Yeah, you might worry about that.
Huh?
Hi.
Hello.
How are you, Mark?
I'm Vanessa.
Vanessa Heather. Nice to meet you.
Man, they all cops this time. This bitch lit.
We've been kind of sitting there chilling and
This
talking.
shit lit.
When are they going to learn to stop having to meet each other?
Yeah, I actually
No,
I'm kind of a little
first
bit
season
fan of
is
it.
well, now this is
This is it actually started in the county.
In the first 2 episodes,
Started on Josh.
4 cops quit.
So, like, when it did come out,
They
they
all
did
like
show the
this
series.
person
I
off
was
real
like,
quick. Only one
you
day.
know, it's like,
Tony's doing another 16 days.
fast forward that, a couple years later, the sheriff's like, hey, you know, we should have been in all 6 days. And I'm like, yeah, he's like, you ready to go?
No, what Tony did a good job.
Yes, sir. Good to see you. Good to see you.
He did a good job. So,
Yes, sir.
hey, that's at the end of the day, first you get recognition
What do
online,
you, as an
and
individual,
you get recognition. Don't get it wrong.
than you did
You
the
change
last
the
time?
person.
Well, Sheriff, you tell me you made changes. However, I'm gonna verify that for myself. Every change that I brought to your attention, I'm gonna pretty much call you out on it and make sure it's done. If it's not fixed or in order.
That's up in jail for real, Tyler. Be careful.
Well, it's for real.
Yes, sir, man. He's a clown, man.
That's why we feel good about having you back. We welcome you and would like for you to be the team captain or leader of this next phase. Thank you again, Tony.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, we don't expect you to ever have to tap out. That's not who we chose.
So stop acting like that.
God forbid you need to take that opportunity.
No, a lot of things that she's up to my
Physical time will be this. We'll talk like friend hands, just logically thinking about the end. Okay? So, everybody together. 30 days for this shit.
Leave him alone. Sit down. Sit down.
Because she's all about that.
Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit. Sit.
Like if I say what you locked up for, what are you locked up for?
I looked up for I got a warrant.
What's you locked for?
It was like
Sit down.
violence or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Sit.
So
Get out. Get out.
you want to have to pull it out. You don't just volunteer information. You don't have to tell me anything. However, you do want to lead people along to get them pretty much from your team. What's your comment? What's your story?
Man, it's just straight down the state. This assault charge.
Assault?
Yeah.
You ever been down the road?
Not wrong.
Yeah. You ever been to prison? No, you must have never been locked up before. You ain't never done no time before, have you?
I've been held before. I ain't been like locked up. I ain't done no real time.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, everybody knows what down the road is.
What you locked up for?
Never heard.
Man, I guess the one up north. Yeah.
Yeah. What they say you still? What you stealing?
Shoot, man, it don't matter. I'm about to ask quick though.
Yeah, you got a bond?
Nah, I ain't got a bond yet. I'm about to get out.
Talk to your lawyer?
Not yet, man. My people get me out of here.
Do you got a lawyer?
No.
How long you been locked up?
Man, I just got here.
I mean, got here like last week. Got here?
Nah, I just got here.
Okay, I understand.
Tony, touch you. Get on Tony.
In the morning in Philly. Philly. Okay. So why you here?
You can just push it up. Push it up.
I am to Alabama game. Yeah. So what your charges is though? What's selling oxy? Selling oxy scripts. You were selling them. Yeah. So who to wait, man? I'm trying to move some stuff myself. Yeah. Now what? I ain't say nobody's name there. Okay. You ever heard of 60 days in? No, what's up? You ain't never, all these cameras around here, you ain't never heard no 6 days in. So I'm just trying to figure out what y'all folks got going on, man. You got nothing going on. You got no guy. Okay. Mark, honestly, he's the only one I'm concerned about. I think he's gonna become a target and possibly not be able to finish.
I'm even calling that too, though.
Is this? You're not obligated to answer any of my questions. Right. However, just know if you don't answer certain questions, you're going to be looked at a certain way. You know what I mean? And I don't say this jokingly. I do see someone picking you out because you're sitting back with your hands crossed and you're looking like you're an easy target. If you come in and I see you just sitting there and then you go and buy $300 worth of store, either you're going to give it to me or you're going to get beat up.
Tony completely underestimates me. I felt like
I think
he
we
was
all do.
disrespectful. You know, I'm more than capable of handling myself. You don't have to like me.
Look at me and see me. We all know that.
I'll be the winner of whatever situation I'm put in.
I'm going to be the pod boss. So don't neither one of y'all think y'all going to come in there and be the pod boss because that's not your role.
Damn, Tony. This man sounds like he's a pod boss. He can come in there.
If I were him, going back a second time, you know, there could be somebody else different in there now. It may not be as easy. That confidence could backfire and it'll look, you know, foolish.
You're right about that. I don't know.
Until you work your way inside my circle. That's how it's going to work. I got shakes. I got drugs. I did what I wanted to do. Second phase, buckle up.
I did what I wanted to do. I don't know.
But I think something
We get a song.
One of the things that I'm looking to see has changed is intake.
Oh, they patting you down now. You better believe that.
You bet.
You ever have any sense of hopelessness?
Hopeless right now, I'm here. The pat down compared to last time was night and day. He actually patted me down, like crotch, you know, socks, like winning my shoes. Like yeah, they figured it out.
It's not complicated. They just didn't want to do the job. Lazy COs, man. That's all that was.
After the pat down, they put me in the tank.
I don't be doing that, man.
So I was this older white guy, right?
Why? Why would you be doing
He
this?
started bragging and boasting about some money.
Tony's gotta take that chance.
Apparently, you ain't never been to jail or been robbed. Mind you, I'm an inmate now. Survival of the fittest. I gotta eat, man.
I gotta eat. I love Tony.
If I'm trying to spend my own money.
Tony giving a real about that.
I'm trying to test the COs in every opportunity that he presented.
They about to grab that. Look.
I wanted to take all his money. There was no one to stop me. It don't matter if you're old, white, black. CO's not. That's the nature of the beast.
Oh, man. Angel. Oh, man.
No sooner than he gave me the 50, a CO.
Oh, no, they getting $50 tomorrow. He's going to take the whole $1,700.
Well, shoot, I got to do what the CO say.
But I ain't never seen it where you keep your money when they book you. But they usually take it or put it on your books. But this is the first time I've seen where you have your money on you. I don't.
This time, intake is 1,000 times better. They made me take a shower.
I need your time to swap popcorn.
They strip searched me, everything. Pick your sack up. All right, you know, the whole nine. In my book, it was 100% correct. I'll definitely give them my A+. They figured it out.
You should have had it right the first time,
He was like,
though.
hey, you can't take my money to the pod. Put the rest on the machine. So I put $50 on my books.
You put $50 in the commissary.
I gotta do it. What inmates do.
Yo, this nigga be fucking smart, bro. Smart. You're smart. I didn't know you was doing that. You know, gay.
You get forward? No, I know I emails in the mail too.
Oh, Tony.
Oh, I got you smiling. No, look at you. Look at you.
Oh my God, this nigga is a gangster. Making the fucking CO smile.
I'm motivated. I'm ready to get it done.
Tony's back.
What about unwanted attention?
I am a lesbian, so I do know that could create some attention from some of the other female inmates. I don't worry about that. I can squash that pretty quickly, or if it's something that I can manipulate to get intel
Why even bring that up?
or get information for the sheriff, I can absolutely do that. I'm obviously not going to cross any lines physically, but if one of the female inmates is flirting with me and I can use that to my advantage to get some intel, I have no problem doing that.
That's smart. I ain't gonna lie.
And you fall in love, y'all. I'm calling it.
Good to see you again.
Unless you tap out first.
So we're looking for great expectations, and I have no doubt that that's what you'll produce. Thank you for giving of your time to help us.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
So you feel confident? Feel good? 30 days.
Yes, sir.
You can do it. All right. If you would just step right over here, grab a cup of tea, and I'll take it.
Walking into 400, a couple people remember me. And I think O'Shea. Everything's coming back to me. It's like, get on your grind. Like, you've been here before, this ain't nothing new. But back to business, I plan on challenging every single CO every step of the way. Trust test, I pretty much gonna pick my own cell. I'm looking for a cellmate I can live with. I just want somebody clean, decent, that I don't have to worry about. Say one I like, there's this old black guy in there. I think he was on Come on. The CEO was like, man, you can't make that old man get up top, this and that. I said, well, I guess I ain't going in there then. I'm not only, showing my dominance for the inmates, I'm doing it to get the COs on board too, to be honest. Once I see they're a little hesitant, oh yeah, I'm about to run with it. I ain't doing nothing, you say. The CO was extremely passive. I could have done anything I want to. I go upstairs, look in the cells.
What y'all found was got only one person in it. That's what I would do.
I see a little white boy come out his cell, and I'm like, yeah, he's definitely doable.
You trying to shut the door on him?
Him, boom, this my cell.
I said, nah. You trying to shut the door on him?
As an inmate, I shouldn't be able to pick my own cell. The reason why that's crazy because is this. Say if we got locked up and we got an altercation, now you putting us in the same room, what you think about that happening? You see what I'm saying? So first test on the officers, they failed. This is my second time going in. Hot boss, that's some phase one. This is like my kid's playground in my backyard. I can do what I want to do.
I know he ain't talking to Tony.
I'm in the day room and I see this white kid who said, "Hey, bro, you working with the camera crew?"
Oh,
I'm like,
man.
I don't want to play this. Like, I could just go up and just smack him. And that
Yeah, white kid need to sit his ass down, man.
You disrespect me, I'm gonna put blood in your mouth.
Shut up real quick.
Wouldn't you shut up? And then all the same gangsters surrounding him who encouraged him enough to even approach me to say that. Now they like, nah, big homie, he may not like that. Now I'm cool, big bro.
His homie's trying to put that battery in his back. Crash dummy. That's what they do to them nigga in the crash dummy.
I mean, Austin would never confront me if he didn't have like 5, 6 people telling him what to do.
Yeah, he's a crash dummy.
Obviously, the oddball, because he's white. The black people, they in his ear, because they ain't got the balls enough to come to me and say it. They know better. So keep your mouth shut, and we good.
Yeah, this nigga is really good at this shit.
What's going on?
Now they tell them.
Now, I'm kind of getting nervous. What's Jesus? Give him one?
Give me,
the arresting officer wanted me to try to sneak something into the jail, which was a 4-inch long handcuff key.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? But a split-second decision there, I was like, I'm taking it. Good.
I don't think he'll be able to get it in there. I guess they're gonna test the security though. Why are they laughing about it?
It's crazy.
We're setting that man up. Catch a real charge. I wouldn't have.
I was worried that if I got caught coming in with that key, that was going to be some lockdown time, some solitary confinement time, or a good old-fashioned beatdown.
Anything else on you, sir?
These keys, son.
I actually stuck the key in my waistband, which would be easily felt on any type of pat down. So now I'm really getting nervous. Anxiety's really kicking in. Then we come to the metal detector.
That's in your hair. Look at your beard, man.
My heart rate was probably at its highest it's been in a long time. If they find the handcuff key, I'm afraid we're catching a real charge.
Ugh.
My heart rate was probably at its highest it's been in a long time. If they find the handcuff key, I'm afraid we're catching a real charge.
I don't think they'll charge you, they'll just take it from you.
I walked through the metal detector and it never alerted. I'm halfway home with it. Now I've got a pat down process to get through. I go in, I take a shower, so I slide into my shoe.
Everybody found that. Yep. What it is?
They had found the key in my shoe.
This right here potentially could be used to escape. We used to have somebody with.
They put me in a holding cell by myself.
That's pretty obvious.
I was thinking, what have I done? And now I'm worried about what's going to happen next.
I'm alive.
30 days, half the time, looking for twice the job.
There's no turning back, there's no tapping out, there's no giving up.
Mark, I want to be straight, I'll be honest with you, okay? It's not going to be easy. You obviously don't know me.
Why do you keep on clowning this man?
I'm gonna do it at all costs. I know I'm gonna do a good job for Sheriff. I know I'm gonna find things.
Horrific things can happen if the person in charge of the safety and security of the unit is part of the problem. This place is terrible. As bad as yesterday was, today's 10 times worse, and I didn't think it could get worse. I never thought that I would be embarrassed of my profession as much as I am here. She should have not just been fired, she should have been arrested for what she did the other day. Arrested.
We got another Miss Williams?
Champagne is the one that I was watching because he's a ticking time bomb. If I gotta fight somebody, I hope it ain't this guy.
Champagne, he definitely thinks he's big stuff. That's fine. But if it was a fight between me and Champagne, I would definitely put Champagne in my eyes. Within hours, we were talking about finding something to get high. I know I'm gonna do a good job for Sheriff. I know I'm gonna find things.
I did think about what are they saying when I'm outside this phone.
Wow. She stays today's in.
Man, they already done called her out.
If Angel suspects me, I'm in danger. I already know it's a shank in there.
They talking about jumping on her and everything. Shane, blow out.
Right now, this is beyond undercover.
Mark seemed extremely nervous. I see what's
sitting there.
So he's just like he's a recovering addict or something. Yeah, you nervous as crap. Yeah, it's literally all up in your face.
Oh, here we go.
With the way things are progressing, I'm really scared things might proceed to a physical level.
Don't you do it. You said you weren't going to go to a physical level. Don't do it. Here it goes.
What's your plan?
Honestly, I don't need a plan.
Explain.
They'll bring me to ground. You see how I am in there. I'm a gorilla. I'm a beast.
What he tells Chad to do, Chad does.
He a grown man. He make his own decisions.
I think Tony is becoming more than just a participant.
He's becoming an actor.
But he's actually becoming a bad guy.
Let's see how far we can take it.
Yes.
Yes, I fucked with this nigga. Yo.
They ain't going to the hole. Damn. Oh, man.
Una dichiarata assoluta volontà di realizzare quell'ospedale. È chiaro che fin tanto che non avevamo la certezza. 很多人可能问，这是好事吗？这是灾难吗？我认为这是好事。
People are starting to ask the question, is this a good thing or is this a disaster? To me, it could mean that this is a good thing right now.
We're now at the El Paso County Courthouse in El Paso, Texas.
All right.
Please be seated. The records reflect the attorneys for the state, the attorneys for the accused are present in the courtroom.
The man you see here is 41-year-old Daniel
received a message
He was killing 2 teens in 1993. He was just 16. At that time, without an attorney or his parents present, Villegas says he was coerced by an El Paso detective into confessing to the murders. Despite recanting the confession hours later,
The
it
attorneys
became
for
a
the state,
key
the
piece of
attorneys
evidence
for
for the prosecution.
are present in the courtroom. The court has received a message from the jury indicating that they've reached a verdict.
Villegas has been on trial 3 separate times for this crime and has maintained his innocence throughout.
Let's run the jury in.
His first trial in 1994 ended in a mistrial due to a hung jury. A 1995 retrial ended with a conviction for capital murder, and Villegas was sentenced to life in prison. After spending 18 years in prison, that verdict was thrown out in 2013 because of ineffective assistance of counsel. Villegas was released in January of 2014 and has remained out on bond as he awaited a third trial. During that time, he fathered 2 children. Though the prosecution continued to insist on his guilt, there was no DNA, no firearm, and no forensic evidence presented linking Villegas to the shooting.
If the defendant will please stand.
Within moments, he'll find out if he goes home with his family or spends the rest of his life in prison.
Madam Presiding Juror, have in effect reached the verdict.
He's on trial for the 3rd time for the murder of 2 teens when he was just 16 years old. Many believe he was wrongfully convicted.
If the defendant will please stand.
The last 25 years of his life, much of it in prison, has all led up to this moment.
In the District Court of El Paso County, Texas, 409th Judicial District, the State of Texas versus Daniel Villegas, number 94-0D09328. Verdict Form B. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Villegas not guilty of...
For the first time since he was 16 years old, 25 years ago, Daniel Villegas is a free man.
Mr. Villegas, you have been under many conditions in this court. You are no longer under any conditions in this court. You are free to leave. Good luck.
In Wuhan, where like it was the death rate was almost 6%. But in other areas where it's better Korea, the death rate is less than 1%. So it's where...
Care ragazze,
Yeah,
cari
so you
ragazzi,
have the most...
mi hanno costretto al tempo casalino.
Yes.
When it starts first.
And you get
È
like
capitato
your
nel caso e per sfiga, ma è
like
successo.
your virus keeps
Leggevo
growing and stuff
su
because you're
chiari
exposed
secondi
to
a
more
questo tempo
like
di mezzo.
everywhere. But in other places where it's more spread out,
Cari ragazzi, siete a casa.
people seem to be
Lo
less
so,
sick.
non siete a scuola perché le scuole le hanno chiuse per via di quella cosa del coronavirus. E forse so anche che cosa pensate ora. Io una volta alla vostra età ho sperato di trovare la scuola allagata, così allagata che non sarebbero bastati uno straccio e uno strofinaccio per asciugarla. Una volta ho sognato di trovarla bruciata, una volta ho sognato anche di trovarla rosa da vermi, rilasciati a chili in sala professori e lungo il corridoio. Tutte storie che leggevo nei giornali, ma che capitavano sempre nelle scuole degli altri e mai nella mia. Accidenti, che sfiga! Pensavo questo. Ero stupido. Lo so, e forse per questa mia stupidità di allora oggi non mi permetto più di giudicare le prime sensazioni. Il giudizio che spezza è diventato avulso da me quando si parla di giovani. Io ho solo idee positive quando si parla di voi. Forse sarà un modo per perdonare il me di allora. Care ragazze, cari ragazzi, vi hanno costretto al tempo casalino. È capitato per caso e per sfiga, per mancata prevenzione. Insomma, sarebbe stato meglio non fosse accaduto, ma è successo. Ora è vostro. Prendetevelo. Succhiate i secondi a questo tempo di mezzo. Leggete. Il libro esige innanzitutto una struttura del tempo. Organizzatelo e organizzatelo. Agitatevi e leggete. Nutritevi di radici, ma leggete soprattutto il contemporaneo, che a scuola trovano poco spazio. E poi invece in questo tempo avete il tempo per dare loro spazio. Come diceva il compagno Calvino, era il finale delle città invisibili. Leggete ad esempio le proteste, quelle che danno respiro alla vita e ci gonfiano i polmoni di ossigeno. Ve ne consiglio una in classe, la biografia di Andrea AIS, il tennista.
A me oggi il tennis piace solo quando penso alla sua storia. E poi la biografia di Carlo Giovanni, medico, presidente della sezione italiana di Medici Senza Frontiere. Il primo a comprendere il nuovo virus della SARS. Si fece mettere in quarantena. Fino alla fine si mostra sempre dedito alla salute. Ai medici arrivati dalla Germania e dall'Australia dice di prelevare i tessuti dai suoi polmoni per studiare. Muore il 29 marzo 2003, dopo 19 giorni di isolamento. L'intervento immediato e mirato di Urbani permette di salvare migliaia di vite. Lasciò la moglie Giuliana e i 3 figli, Tommaso, Luca e Maddalena. Secondo l'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità, il modello antipandemia da lui redatto nel 2003 è ancora oggi il modello valido per combattere quel tipo di malattie. Sono cresciuto seguendo il miraggio di incarnare il sogno. Ho fatto della mia vita i miei sogni e gli
Yes, so that pandemic came in 3 different waves. The first one was mild, the second one was the deadliest, and then it was one final. In spring was the first, in fall the second, and winter the third wave. So they think this virus is going to do the same thing.
State a casa, stay at home. E delle che renasce. La voce dell'Italia che renasce e resiste durante l'emergenza contro il coronavirus. In questi giorni ha detto il Santo Papa, dobbiamo ritrovare la concretezza delle capire che quelle piccole cose del nostro tesoro nell'anonimo della contadiscia gesti da tenersi. Ad esempio un piatto fanno una carezza, un abbraccio. Fanno si la vita, abbia senso c'è via comunicarsi. Con questo c'è Francesco ha ravvicinato. Celebra questa mattina a Santa Marta.
È come se questi giorni di autoquarantena ti costringessero a fare una sorta di autoanalisi, tra virgolette.
Personalmente ho riscoperto il valore del tempo e soprattutto il valore della lettura non sacrificata al tempo.
Per me questa quarantena è una benedizione. Sono messi adesso c'è la pace e non sento più solo.
Chiedo l'anonimato perché ho un segreto inconfessabile.
This is people reading about the quarantena experiment.
Sei costretto a
capire un po' che cosa può della vita e che ciò insomma l'esercizio a due stare a mente per tutti. Per la quarantena non ci passi di casa, no, e cosa ti manca della vita di tutti. Da tanti passaggi in solitario che facevo, manca a fiori lonely.
Ma non manca uscire sabato sera con i miei amici, ma apprezzo la quarantena.
I want to go out with my friends and go with my mom.
Perché sento di averla messa proprio in stand-by. Mi manca il
It's
contatto
like feeling like you're in stand-by.
anche il rumore di un clacson, la corsa per andare a lavoro, mettermi le
The
scarpe,
big problem is that we're not working.
ad ogni fermata del bus,
Can't take the bus.
del freddo. Insomma, per fartela breve, sai che c'è? Che a casa sono una bellezza.
Io ho ordinato online un
Play
puzzle
puzzle online.
che inizierò stasera
Sit down,
un gioco di società che non potrò usare perché sono sola e quello che mi manca sono le persone, la vicinanza con le persone, tanto.
È un po' surreale la situazione che c'è a Milano, l'aria che si respira, ma spero il più presto di vederla di nuovo in vita come è sempre stata.
La verità è che l'isolamento forzato che questo virus ha causato ha rispolverato un mondo e un modo di vivere che, nonostante l'emergenza, in realtà non piace.
E vorrei imparare a suonare la chitarra, sai, ne approfitterò di questo tempo.
Ciao ragazzi, ne usciremo, speriamo presto. Quando tutto finirà, organizzeremo una grande festa dove vi bacerò tutti e tutte, che lo vogliate o meno.
Mi trovo in macchina, mi trovo per lavoro,
I'm driving in my car back to the house, trying to stay inside for the pandemic, but I was at work.
Qua
quasi in modo inconscio riconosco il valore di questo particolare periodo, in cui vince un paradosso. Siamo immersi in uno straordinario senso di collettività, però senza poterci incontrare anche con gli affetti più cari.
In Spanish is affecto, in Italian is affetti. So you're like, oh yeah, affect.
But it's hard to figure out how to pronounce it exactly. Because you already
Non
got
lo so,
mind your own
non lo
word.
so, io penso, nel senso che io like a YO, they say io.
Non colpisce solo gli anziani. Sicuramente sono in una diciamo forma più lieve, però non è da sottovalutare, i medici dicono, perché non lo sanno neanche loro, è una malattia nuova.
Gabriele Mattia è un ragazzo romano di 29 anni, ricoverato a Trento dopo essere risultato positivo al Covid-19.
Sono stato male 4 giorni in cui stavo a casa, poi una sera che stavo mangiando a casa e facevo fatica per il respiro, dovevo chiamare l'ambulanza e vedere entrare per 2 persone completamente coperte, mascherine, cuffie, camici, è stato veramente un po' scioccato. Poi mi sono calmato, ma è stato brutto. E poi niente, mi hanno fatto i controlli, il tampone, è risultato positivo e mi hanno ricoverato. La febbre sale e scende, però quello che mi fa male è, a parte i dolori, penso della terapia, tutte le ossa. E poi è come se ci avessi 1 chilo di polvere nel petto, ogni volta respirare un po' non è facile. Parlare in piedi pure non è semplice. Io penso che sia una testimonianza che anche un ragazzo giovane in salute possa subire dei gravi danni questa cosa, e possa stare male, essere colpito. Non colpisce solo gli anziani. Sicuramente sono in una diciamo forma più lieve, però
The fight against coronavirus has stopped performances at the Bolshoi Theater, something that even World War II couldn't do. It's part of Russia's efforts to contain an outbreak that President Putin says is being taken care of.
Ситуация в целом находится под контролем.
For weeks, Russia only reported a handful of infections. Then on Monday, that number went from 63 to 93. The next day, it was 114. The government jumped into action, closing the border to foreigners, banning events of more than 50, and forcing residents returning from abroad to self-isolate. Muscovites have followed their example, stockpiling, emptying supermarket shelves, trying to find face masks and disinfectants. But for some experts, this response might be coming too late.
Во всей стране огромное количество пациентов с пневмонией, с вспышками пневмонии. Конечно, мы не можем не провести параллель и не ассоциировать эти вспышки с пневмонией с коронавирусом. Поэтому, на мой взгляд, это десятки тысяч заболевших, которых мы просто не знаем.
She's not the only one who is worried that the rate of infection in a country of 146 million, that borders China on one side and Europe on the other, seems suspiciously low. Especially because most people who arrive from abroad haven't been tested. Some said upon arrival they were put in the same room with infected people. In Russia's second largest city of St. Petersburg, there are 10 cases that we know about. But that didn't stop 130,000 people from visiting a relic of John the Baptist, to kiss it. Church employees didn't have time to wipe it down between every person. Although Putin claims the spread of the epidemic has been contained in Russia, he's called for an increased production of tests and more supplies of medicine and equipment. The government has gone so far as to order prisoners to start making face masks. Inside the Kremlin, every employee is now being tested for COVID-19.
Why Russian prisoners
But
make
critics
test
still
of
wonder if
face
the
masks and
national
our prisoners
response
are not making
goes far enough.
Россия не готова к эпидемии вообще. Но я больше чем уверена, что даже тяжелые результаты и смерть, они будут просто скрываться от населения. И будут вбрасываться в головы людей совершенно другие мысли, которые нужны нашему правительству Владимира Путина.
From 2100 GMT on Thursday, all Chinese nationals will be forbidden from entering Russia because Moscow now believes that the Chinese outbreak is much riskier. Now cases have topped 70,000 people. The exposure here, though, remains quite low. Only 2 people confirmed with coronavirus within the Russian border, but Moscow is taking strict measures. It has quarantined hundreds of people. It has closed much of its joint border with China and limited flights there too. And this has come of something of a surprise because Russia and China are such close allies. That, of course, can make the potential exposure much higher because in recent years they have furthered economic, political and cultural ties and increased tourism between the two countries. So Moscow has clearly decided it is not going to take much risk at all. Dan HPS, ABC News, Moscow.
I'm sure Putin will put an end to this first. Those people constantly disinfect, they drink vodka.
Dude, Jermaine lives in the office. I haven't confirmed. Like he sleeps in a what's the name of that place? WeWork.
Non più a lavorare, o perché malati, o perché saranno diventati dei pazzi, perché stiamo diventando pazzi. Mi auguro che il caldo ci salvi. I medici che stanno lavorando in prima linea non sono dei eroi, sono dei pazzi, hanno perso il lume della ragione, perché uno che avesse un minimo di lume della ragione direbbe io non vado, io mi dimetto.
Look at Key West.
It's already pretty empty. Now it's completely dead. There's like one car, one light. People.
From New York and on the new Hot 97 app, Ebro in the morning. On Hot 97.
Ebro in the morning, it's time to get serious though. About to get a COVID update. Let's give it up one time. We have Mayor Bill de Blasio on the line. Round of applause. Yeah, man. How you doing, Bill?
Morning. Good morning. You know what? We're all in this fight together.
Yep.
That's what I gotta say.
Well, you know, you were in a precarious situation last.
The Trump administration has entered into discussions with members of Congress. They want to move forward with more economic relief, not just for Americans, of course. They certainly seem to be prioritizing businesses more than Americans when it comes to providing some stimulus money, some cash so people will be able to pay their bills. So Steve Mnuchin actually discussed this proposal. It's coming from the Treasury Department on Fox Business. Let's watch.
The second component, I refer to this as checks in the mail, but it's really money direct deposited. Most people, we have all their information. And the plan is $500 billion in 2 tranches. The first one would be $1,000 per person, $500 per child. So for a family of 4, that's a $3,000 payment. As soon as Congress passes this, we get this out in 3 weeks. And then 6 weeks later, if the president still has a national emergency, we'll deliver another $3,000.
So as you mentioned there, the payments, if they pass what they're hoping to pass through Congress, they would provide economic relief in 2 different phases. But Mnuchin also said that the White House's plan would allocate $300 billion for small businesses, noting that, quote, there will be loan forgiveness for employers who keep their workers on the payroll. Now, when it comes to the funds that would be given to Americans, if it comes in 2 phases, the first phase would be allocated on April 6th, and the second would be allocated on May 18th. So there's more detail that I want to give you, but John, I wanted you to kind of jump in and tell me what you think so far.
Yeah,
I mean, look, first of all, in terms of, I guess, sort of optics or quasi-optics, having him come out to be the person who's talking about that seems like a poor choice to me. I mean, has there ever been a person in government service who cared less about the experience of an individual working person, let alone, like, the working class? I kind of doubt it. And also, the way he communicated about that, I found to be a little bit dishonest. Like, he runs through the example of what a family of four could expect. But then he goes on to talk about the later phases and he just starts using that $3,000 figure as sort of a standard. But there are a lot of people who are not a family of four. For individual people or for a couple, they're going to obviously be getting less money. And it's like you throw around the number 3,000 and it seems like, okay, I could see that taking care of a lot of people's needs. But if you're just an individual and you're getting 1,000, there are large parts of the entire country where that's not even going to cover your rent, let alone any other expenses you have as you're
It's very likely that this virus has come from bats. Bats have lots of viruses. Very few of these viruses actually make them sick.
Bats are not a villain. Coronaviruses are a type of virus that can spread from animals to humans and cause diseases like SARS and MERS. The latest coronavirus outbreak started in Wuhan, China. So far, it's killed almost 1,400 people and infected more than 60,000 around the world. Scientists are racing to figure out how humans contracted the new virus. Based on initial genetic testing and past outbreaks, they say it's likely the coronavirus originated in bats.
There was a recent paper put out where they looked at the sequence of the virus.
They found that the closest relative to the Wuhan virus was a virus from that 96% similar. I think that is pretty accepted that the viruses are very likely coming from bats, but how they're getting to us from bats, either directly or through some intermediate host, need to be worked out for this new one. There isn't one particular kind or species of bats that's associated with spillovers. For Nipah and it's the food bats. For SARS and MERS and this one, it's smaller insect-eating bats.
Other animals have passed viruses between bats and humans before.
SARS really spread from civet cats into humans, but now we know that the virus some point in time jumped from bats into civet cats.
With MERS, what we think happened there is that the coronavirus jumped from bats into dromedary camels, and recently we're seeing this virus jumping from dromedary camels into the human population.
Now, Chinese scientists say pangolins could be the middlemen, but their research hasn't been made public yet.
Pangolins are the most trafficked animal in the world. They're basically like an armadillo with plates. So they've got these really long scales, and those scales are prized in traditional medicine. I think the isolation of this virus is going to cause a lot of stir. There's going to be kind of a knee-jerk reaction to say, pangolins are probably it. The more that people look at some of the genetic data, you'll get a little bit of infighting in the scientific community as to really whether or not the pangolin virus is the true direct link or if it's just maybe another piece of the puzzle.
I think we should be really cautious until we see the paper that comes out.
Scientists don't need to know where the virus came from in order to develop a vaccine, but identifying the origin can help contain the current outbreak and prevent future ones.
After the SARS outbreak, the government banned the sale of civet cats because we have now determined that civet cats could lead to more coronavirus exposures. So something similar could happen if, with 100% confidence, we can identify that as this animal.
Early reports linked the first coronavirus patients to a market in Wuhan where bats might have been sold as food. New testing has raised doubts about the market's role in the outbreak, but xenophobia toward eating bats has still festered.
If you cook meat, you're going to destroy viruses like coronavirus because they're not very heat stable, but either handling the animals or handling the meat or preparing the meat would certainly put you at risk. Chickens give us salmonella all the time. Do we stop eating chickens? No. Just stigmatizing a traditional practice or someone's food doesn't help the cause. It's wrong. You got to understand the science and explain it to them.
Scientists do know that bats and rodents carry a relatively high number of viruses, but bats often don't get sick from them.
If we can figure out why bats don't get sick, we may be able to apply it to reducing the effects of viral infection. You don't have clear-cut answers. There are a lot of hypotheses. One is
takes up an enormous output of energy. As a byproduct of all that metabolic activity, you generate toxic molecules. What bats have done is evolved to deal with that. Those properties, for whatever reason, allow them to deal with viruses as well. But all this is conjecture.
We and other groups over the years have identified molecular mechanisms that bats have evolved that suppresses inflammation in bats. So bats have a good antiviral response that helps them control virus replication, and they have low levels of inflammation.
Despite the animal's potential relationship to the new coronavirus, virologists don't want people to vilify bats, many of which are endangered.
The reputation of bats is a very high concern. Bats are so essential for our
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Did you see what Trump tweeted? He tweeted and deleted. It's fucking hilarious. He said, checks are coming to everyone in America except the people who used hashtag not my president. I wouldn't want to offend you with a check from someone that's not your president. Something to that effect. See if you can find that. Oh, and then he wrote hashtag MAGA afterwards. I mean, he just dunked on them. The president dunks on people.
Yeah. I want to know who the tweet deleter is.
Well, someone in his department was probably like, Mr. Trump, that's not a good idea.
Do they have a siren that goes off? We gotta delete that. Yeah, man.
I know the president can delete tweets.
How much is he gonna send?
I think they wanted to give like $1,000 a month or something like that to Americans. Is that the idea, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's what
Lots of them going up to 2,000 on a price, and if you get 2,000 a month.
Yeah,
It's gotta be 2,000.
Everybody, but if you give everybody $2,000 a month, it's a good thing. But everyone's gonna go, hey, you could have done this the whole time.
That's right.
Wait a minute. If you just raise taxes, can you just give people money? Can you just give people more money? And I'm not saying we should do this, but imagine if that was the solution to all this. If you just give people more money, everything just sort of levels out, relaxes. Crime drops, everything drops, drug abuse drops.
Well, I mean, they've got to know that when people don't have work, they don't have money, with no money, they can't support their family, that's when the riots start.
Yes.
That's when things catch on fire. They know it's like a bribe.
That thing is wild. That was today, by the way. That was today. Joe posted that shit right away.
Oh, this smells good.
That's what you need Joe right now.
Demons, be gone!
Be gone, demons.
Be gone!
Leave this studio!
Leave this planet.
Leave our universe!
Leave. This is legit sage from a Native American woman.
Wow.
So we're purifying this from.
Wonderful. Please, God.
And Odin too, just in case they were wrong.
That's right.
And Odin, who was around first, you know? You think all the gods that everybody believed in, and they're like, I'm not so sure about Thor.
Yeah,
and then they let
NASA, like,
Thor
what
was
the
legit,
fuck?
right?
And he's still out there, just like
Like,
somebody who
for
gets
a
fell out
minute, I was like, this is not
of fame as a god.
Yeah. He's like, don't you fuckers see the lightning?
Yeah. That's
You know?
me throwing bolts.
He's like one of those guys when you go to Vegas and you see one of those billboards for a strange casino and you're like, oh, that guy. Yeah. Tony Orlando and Dawn. I remember them.
Thor's at the Mirage.
Thor. Thor's doing a residency. You motherfuckers, check out the thunder. Well, that's actually caused by atmospheric conditions. No, you fucks.
Thor's on Cameo.
Make that. Imagine. Someone had a really good point about that. Some atheist was arguing against religions. It might have been Sam Harris. Probably was Sam Harris. It might have been Richard Dawkins. But he basically said there's 99 different gods that people who believe in the Christian God don't believe in. And then he goes, atheists just take it one step further.
They just get rid of the last.
We just one god away. That's what you say.
That's cool.
Yeah. I get confused with being an atheist all the time. I do not believe I'm an atheist. I believe I am, I'm open to everything person. I don't believe stories about people coming back from the dead, and because they're written by people, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's right. And also they're supposed to function on more than the surface level. They're supposed to be a kind of fractal that has inside of it a lot of like symbols related to just human existence.
Yes.
They're not meant to be so much like taken literally. That's when you embarrass yourself on either side.
Exactly. On either side. That's a really good point. And the translations apparently are so difficult to do.
Yeah.
Apparently, especially Old Testament, when they translated the Old Testament, they had to translate it. I mean, think of all the different languages they had to go through. It was Latin and Greek and German and English and all these different languages that are so different. Like, have you ever used the translate button? Like, I follow a lot of Russian fighters, and they, and their Instagram feed, they write in Russian, and I'm always like, oh, translate. It's a really cool feature. But you can tell it's not exactly what they meant because it's all fucked up because their language is different.
Right.
Like the way they structure sentences is different. So English doesn't just plug and play.
Right.
It's like sticking a USB 3 into a USB A. Like, hey, this doesn't really fit.
Right. Now add time. Add thousands of years and scrolls
and kings who wanted things changed.
Yeah.
The King James version. What?
Right. It's the best. That's my favorite one to read on acid. That's the one. King James, Book of John, baby. Hit that on acid. It's so wonderful. It's so trippy because it's like, that's when I really like Christianity clicked for me, regardless if it's whether it's real or not. But that's when I was like, oh, okay, I get this. Because the Book of John, when you read it, you're like, well, someone wrote it. I don't know who wrote it. And whoever fucking wrote this, their mind was blown, man. Like, this wasn't written by someone who was just like a normal person. This is a person who was freaking out in the most intense way. And so to me, that's what I love about it, is it's like something about how old it is and the distortions, the historical distortions, the warping of it produce this kind of awesome glitched out mosaic of, if nothing else, human consciousness 5,000 years ago, where our minds were. That's trippy by itself, regardless of whether or not a person who could like raise the dead and walk on water was walking about. Just holy shit, here's how people thought back then.
Yes, yeah. I mean, all the stuff that you can't prove or you don't know, that's interesting. It's weird where those stories came from and why they're so universal. Like everyone has like a creator. Everyone has like a main dude that did the thing. And, then there's some other people that have like large groups of gods. Like the Greeks had gods for everything. A lot of Native Americans had gods for everything.
Sure. Yeah. Animism. Like I've talked to people who who produce electronic music, and some of them say that the computers have a life in them, a sentience, a spirit inside their computer. So there's a collaboration happening that isn't one-sided when they're making stuff. It's like working with like the spirit within the machine, which is pretty trippy, man. Like,
why but this is based on input or the way they reacted when they're putting in the input to the thing. They think the thing's responding to them.
Yeah, they think that it's alive. Like,
and standard keyboards, or is this just electronic stuff?
I know someone who makes visual art on their computer, their laptop.
Oh.
Do you have an Alexa? You probably don't. Do you have an Echo? Like, sometimes I'll realize the way I'm talking to that thing is like really impolite. Like, next up!
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to yell at robots.
Yeah. It is fun to yell at robots.
It's really funny. I made fun of this, but there is a point to this. PETA had a statement that they put out a while back because these dudes from Boston Dynamics were kicking the fuck out of these robots. They're trying to figure out how to get these robots to fall over. And they're making these insanely durable robots. Like this, if you take scientists and engineers and you say, hey, I want you guys, here's a shit ton of money, I want you guys to make the dopest robots you can make. Like, they're gonna make robots you can kick. And it's not a living thing. But PETA released some statement saying they didn't think it's cool to kick robots.
What? That's not real. That's
real.
Fake.
No, it's real. It's real.
What?
Yes. I think the statement, I'm paraphrasing, was something to the effect of, there's other things that are more important, but it's still not cool to kick robots.
Jesus Christ, that's a tattoo right there, man.
But it just shows you what'll happen when robots become alive, because those fucking traitors, those people that think that robots are alive and that they're us,
yeah,
those emotionless things that have no place in our world with power. They're supposed to be things that we control.
Yeah.
As soon as you let them control themselves and you try to pretend they're a person, they're just gonna wipe it out.
Yeah, man. Can you imagine? I'm not gonna try to kick one of those fucking DARPA bots. Those things are terrifying.
They would have a record of it. They would always remember that this one kicks robots.
It's in the cloud.
Yeah, and then they'll show it to you one day when some super sophisticated genius god robot sits you down on a couch and shows you kicking these unbeknownst to you sentient robots.
Yeah.
They were just trying to fucking figure out, what am I? And I'm like they were like little babies and you're kicking them. So the robots are very, very upset at you in the future.
They might just reanimate your ass and just show you over and over that clip of you kicking the fucking robot.
Yes. Did you see what Trump tweeted?
No.
He tweeted and deleted. It's fucking hilarious. He said, checks are coming to everyone in America except the people who used hashtag not my president. I wouldn't want to offend you with a check from someone that's not your president.
Oh my God.
Something to that effect. See if you can find that. And then he wrote hashtag MAGA afterwards. I mean, he just dunked on them. The president dunks on people.
Yeah. I want to know who the tweet deleter is.
Well, someone in his department was probably like, Mr. Trump, that's not a good idea.
Do they have a siren that goes off? You gotta delete that. Yeah, man.
The president can delete tweets.
How much is he gonna send?
I think they wanted to give like $1,000 a month or something like that to Americans. Is that the idea, Jeremy?
I've heard lots of things. I don't know, up to 2,000. I don't know if Bernie's saying they should give 2,000 a month.
Yeah.
I don't know, so
It's gotta be 2,000.
Everybody, but if you give everybody $2,000 a month, it's a good thing. But everyone's gonna go, hey, you could have done this the whole time.
That's right.
Wait a minute. If you just raise taxes, can you just give people money? Can you just give people more money? And I'm not saying we should do this, but imagine if that was the solution to all this. If you just give people more money, everything just sort of levels out and relaxes. Crime drops, everything drops, drug abuse drops.
Well, I mean, they've got to know that when people don't have work, they don't have money. With no money, they can't support their family. That's when the riots start.
Yes.
That's when things catch on fire. They know that, so it's like a bribe to try to keep people from rioting until whatever the fuck this thing is passing.
You could look at it that way, or it's giving people a different environment to exist in, one that doesn't leave them hostile. So instead of looking at it like a bribe, look at it like, you know what, I see what a lot of your problem is. We're not asking for affluence. You could barely get by. But if it was easy to get by, if you could just get by, and then you could pursue other things, would that be better for society? And that was like what Andrew Yang was suggesting. If this whole automation revolution took place and everything started getting automated and no one had a job anymore, there might be something to that. There might be something to that now. You know, the question is like, what are you happy your taxes get used for? You know, it's almost like you should be able to vote on that. Like the one thing that we don't get real direction on, right? Like in terms of like what the country actually wants. But if we could all just individually vote on things like that, like where's my taxes go? I want my taxes to go 100% to education.
Right.
I want to make that cut, and you know, you guys got to figure out what to do with the rest of the money.
You did that.
My money, I want it to go towards education.
But then nobody, or the people who would be paying for war and prisons and shit, would just be like BDSM people.
Well, how about the salaries? How about the salaries of politicians? How about the money that they make doing tours and all that kind of shit?
Private jets.
All that shit. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Also, like the loose connection between the state and corporations and the way it's just all kind of merging together right now. And also, you know, it appears to be kind of the apocalypse at the moment. Like,
well, if it's not the apocalypse, I don't think it's the apocalypse. I think it's just a dangerous illness. But it's definitely a dress rehearsal. It's a dress rehearsal for fucking people are going to become preppers. It is going to be amazing for the toilet paper industry. They're gonna experience a banner year. If you got toilet paper stock, you're riding high right now.
Do you remember I don't know if you had this experience, but like I can remember sitting at my computer and pressing the button on Amazon where I wanted to buy something. And it's like, this isn't available right now. In that moment of like, what? It's my button that brings me things. And then like suddenly just realizing, like, oh my fucking God, how completely weak have I become that I got accustomed to pressing this button and people would bring groceries to my house. And now it won't. Now it's like stopped. Not only that, I'm so accustomed to like, well, I'll just go to the grocery store and pick up some food. It's always been there. It's not there. Dude, I had an Instacart delivery today, because we wanted to get stocked up on food. $200 worth of food. Guess what I got? Strawberries, hummus, and I think we got some eggs. That's it. Out of the whole order, everything else was sold out. All the beef gone, all the chicken gone. Nothing's there. It's like the shelves are empty. So it's like, okay, send everybody $2,000 a month. But what are they going to buy if there's no food on the shelves?
Well, I think that was a temporary freak out where people stockpiled stuff. And I think as long as food keeps getting delivered on a normal schedule, I think that'll normal out.
I hope so, man.
Yeah, I do. I think that'll normal out. But it just shows you there's so many things in our society that are amazing, like grocery stores, like cell phones, like we can call each other, all this. But those things are so fragile. They're so vulnerable. Like if an emergency happens and everyone wants to call at once, the cell phone system can't handle it.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you have a phone and you can call anytime you want, and I have a phone, I can call anytime I want, and everyone in the world has a phone they can call anytime they want. No! If everybody does that, the system is not set up to handle that.
That's right.
If everybody does that, that's why if there's an earthquake or a tsunami or anything, everyone's fucked. It's so hard to make phone calls.
Yeah.
It's not going to get through.
Yeah. Well, dude, I just heard on NPR that so many people were requesting unemployment that it's crashed systems in several states. This is the real problem. One of my friends was saying, he's like, a lot of people are running out of money tomorrow. They're bartenders, anyone in the service industry, all the people who work at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
It's not how many of them had a lot of money stored up?
None of them.
So what happens now when there's no food on the shelves?
Yeah, we gotta help them. I'm in a text message thread with Whitney Cummings and Nick Swartz and then Chris D'Elia, and we're talking about that very thing right now, like how to do it and how to set up a fund. It needs to be done for sure. People that can help should help. This is not a normal time. This is not a time where people are lazy. This is a time where the whole world got fucked real quick.
Yeah.
We weren't ready for it, and we're going to have to come together. But this is a good time for people to recognize the importance of community. It's a terrible time for humanity. It's a terrible time for us and terrible time for the people that are sick. But it's a really good time for us to understand why community is important. We live in this illusionary world that's provided to us by the culture that we've created, where you can just buy things anytime you want. You don't need people. You come home, you watch Netflix, you don't engage with anyone, you get in your car, you barely say hi to anybody at work. We're detached from each other. And this is the only time ever in life we've been detached from each other, and we're being detached by these goddamn electronics.
Yeah.
They're sneaking up on us.
Yeah.
Electronics and cars, which is also, it's an architectural creation, a mechanical creation, and now more than ever, they're driving computers.
Yeah, man. It's true.
What I'm trying to say is Ted Kaczynski was right.
Oh my God, we all know that.
He was right.
Did you ever read his manifesto?
No, I'm scared it's catchy.
Yeah, man, it's so fun. I went through a period of doing ketamine and trying to watch the worst thing. Charles Manson, Kaczynski, and it is, it is a little bit kind of interestingly not that off, but then the tone is so imperial or something when you're reading it. There's this, it's a manifesto, that's how you have to write it, But the one thing, my wife is part of it's called a mommy group. So it's a connection online of all these mommies and on all over LA. And what they do is people will post shit they need. So one of the moms just had a kid, they don't have any wet wipes. And so then all the other moms will be like, oh, we've got wet wipes. And then right now they're just leaving them on the door. So people come and get them. So it's I think the community thing is exactly right.
Yeah.
But also people have to maybe transcend money for a second and figure out ways to set up in their community, like, what do you need? What do I have? And then start some form of like trade or just giving people, there was someone who set up a toilet paper exchange in LA where he was just like, if you have extra toilet paper, bring it. And then he had toilet paper and he was just giving it out to people who are, I think that's the sort of thing we're gonna have to start doing if we can.
Yeah.
It's like right now there's old people who, they can't do shit, man.
They can't do anything, they're terrified.
They can't even get online.
If you know them, you gotta help them. And this is a weird time for us, but it's a time for us to reset. It's not good. I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying we can get a positive out of this.
Yeah.
The people that make it through, we can get a positive out of this. And the positive is community is important. It's really important. And it seemed like it wasn't important because it seemed like we had everything set up so you didn't have to engage with people. It's not the right way to do it. It's not good for anybody.
No.
That kind of life is not good. And the detachment that we have, that's why do you think people have road rage on the highway? When they're locked in their little box, separated from people, in a way that they wouldn't have it in person. It was just it's like a thin piece of metal and glass separating you from these people. There's the other added factor of the heightened senses because you're driving fast. You realize you might have to make quick movements. So dumb things people do are elevated. They're even more dumb.
Yeah.
But it's also that you're detached. You're in these boxes.
Right. It's like a weird dream.
We've done weird shit to each other.
Yeah.
Because of that.
We're all gummed up in that way. It's like a fungus that grew on the circuitry of society and started, or it's like, when they talk about the dolphins and the whales being fucked up by the high-tech sonar they're using and washing up on the beach because the sonar is messing up their ability to communicate with each other. It's like there's this kind of technological sonar that has completely made us disconnected from the earth, essentially. Like our earth connection has been replaced by a technological connection. Now, technology comes from the earth, but we're talking about a secondary thing compared to, your feet touching the ground, being around another human and like recognizing them as having exactly the same thing you have, which is they want to be happy. Feeling the connection between people when you're with someone. I don't know if you've ever done that, but just like the next time you're around anybody that you're like buying shit from or that you don't normally just kind of go by, feel it, you can feel it. There's an energetic connection that you can feel there that's easy to overlook.
Yeah, we've lost the biggest one, which is through light pollution. I think every night people were humbled and reminded of the majesty of the universe when they looked up and saw the infinite skies on a clear night.
Yeah.
The infinite stars, just the whole...
People take amazing photos of things every day, like grapefruits. And because we're so good at taking photos, we're also really good at doing taxes. People can be good at anything, even taxes. Intuit TurboTax.
The whole Milky Way, you can see the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there's parts of the country where there's plenty of darkness and you could literally see the whole Milky Way. And it makes you think like, oh, our ancestors saw this fucking freaky shit all the time. We decided to shut off the greatest art the world has ever known because we want to be able to see better at night.
Yeah.
The greatest art, an art that literally not just has inspired science and wonder and fueled it, right? But also has kind of always put people in place. Always just understand. This is not a backdrop, it's not a tapestry. The up there is madness. It's forever, and you're not protected. There's just a thin layer of gas between you and the universe, which is infinite. You're this tiny little speck of nothingness in this impossible to understand expanse of planets and stars that just goes on forever, literally forever. And we're one little tiny piece of it, and we're being held here with a spin and some air. And there's a giant fucking fireball in the sky that keeps us alive. And it's 1,000,000 times bigger than the Earth.
Yeah.
And it's right there. And this is the reality that we live in. It is almost too crazy to put in your consciousness on a daily basis, so we forget about it all the time. It's one of the most important things about our existence here, is that we're a part of the universe.
Yeah.
It's not just that we're in, fucking Sherman Oaks or we're hanging out in Montana. No, we're right there, connected in the universe. And it doesn't get brought up, and one of the reasons is because we don't see it. We don't fucking freak out. If you go to the country, you're camping, you fucking freak out. You're like, wow. You see the stars, like, this is fucking nuts, man. You can see them all. It's a reset button. It changes how you feel about life.
Yeah. Well, also it seems like a lot of us have forgotten that we're gonna die on top of all that. I mean, not only are you like looking up at this void filled with stars, but the thing you are is temporary. And that to me is, the other day I'm like just washing dishes during this fucking pandemic, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I feel so lucky to be washing dishes right now. I'm alive, I'm healthy. This is fucking, it was a different kind of washing dishes than a week ago when I was able to, or 2 weeks or before this shit started, when I could order anything I fucking wanted off the internet. Suddenly I'm in a different world. Like, this is a world where, we gotta wash these dishes because, man, if bugs come, I don't know if I want to call an exterminator right now. I don't know how many people I want in my house right now. I don't know what this shit is. So it's like suddenly what you're experiencing is this kind of like, what does it say in the Bible that we both love so much? Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And I think you could easily translate that to understanding your place in the universe should produce a kind of positive fear and trembling. Not like you're anxious or terrified, but just a kind of like, whoa, this doesn't last. Nothing about this lasts. And right now, everyone around the planet is getting a first-hand glimpse of that very truth, right?
Yeah, all at once. One big dose.
One big dose of it all at once, man.
One big dose for people to recognize how much of what they concentrate on a daily basis, how much of what fills their consciousness is shit.
Yeah.
It's utter nonsense.
Yeah.
And we got tricked. We got tricked into thinking it would go on forever, and now we know it's not going to. And now we know, hey, look, this is a terrible thing, but relatively speaking, compared to supervolcano, asteroid impact, compared to something solar flare, something really crazy that can happen and blow out all the power, which is 100% a possibility. Solar flares are 100% a possibility. And for people to not recognize that and just go through their life, it's just because we look at life as if what we've experienced while we're alive is the norm. But it's not. It's not the norm. It's just hard for you to recognize that your life is so short. Your life is so short that when they're measuring all the different catastrophes that have happened over the Earth, whether it's proven sites of asteroid impacts or proven sites of volcano eruptions or all these different things that have happened for sure and wiped out millions of people all over the world, they happen over a time span that's too big. Our head doesn't get in there. Our head doesn't go, what is 13,000 years is just some scratches on some paper in my head, my stupid head. I don't know what 13,000 years means. I can't do it. But 13,000 years ago, they think, and there's more and more evidence every day, that there was some big impact on Earth.
Yeah.
And who fucking knows how many of those humans have gone through? Who knows? For the what? I think scientists believe, what is it? It's like 300,000 plus years we've been this, right? Is that the idea? Homo sapien? Something like that, right? Bro, that ain't shit.
Right.
That's so short. That's so short just in the time that the Earth has been here, in the 4 point whatever billion years the Earth has been here. And that's so short in terms of the almost 14 billion years the known universe has been here. All of it's madness. Every single step along the way is madness, but we get stuck in these little time periods where nothing changes. And so we think that this is life. So we've built all these houses that only can work on electricity. How many fucking people have a real fireplace in their house that live in cold places?
Yeah, man.
They're banning those now.
Right.
So if they're banning fireplaces because they don't want to start fires, that's great as long as you can ensure the gas and the power is going to stay on. And I don't think you can do that.
Yeah,
you just think you can because you've done it for 100 years.
That's right.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
100 years isn't shit. 100 years, the Industrial Revolution, the Roaring 20s from then to today. Let's go 150. Let's get crazy. That ain't shit.
Yeah.
That ain't shit. To say this is how things are every day is so dumb. It's especially to say it in terms of the Earth, natural disasters, space anomalies, not even anomalies, things that happen, like solar flares. They happen all the time, man.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, and shit, we don't even know. That's the other thing. We don't know all the data in the universe. We don't know that there isn't something called like a quadrillion ripple that happens every, 16 million years.
Call Sean Carroll right now. I need information.
Do you know that poem Ozymandias?
Ozymandias?
Yeah. It's by Shelley, I think. It's like, I don't have it memorized, but basically it's like the poem is about someone who sees the broken legs of a statue in the desert. And written on a plaque is, "My name is Ozymandias, ruler of rulers, king of kings. Behold my works, ye mighty, and despair." All over. Because it's just a broken legs. It's like all you motherfuckers who think you have power, who think you have all this control. It's like, we don't, I guarantee, of course, like in ancient Egypt, there was probably, I'm not talking about the pharaoh, but there's at least 1,000 dudes who are like, I'm like the hot shit in Egypt, and they're gonna remember me for a long time. It's like, we don't know who you are. It's all gone, eradicated, wiped out. And this, to me, is like one of the really side effects of this technology thing, is we've all become completely self-obsessed, self-absorbed, putting our images out there, making sure that our profiles are updated, you know what I mean? Like, we have this insane idea of, it's like we're so deeply rooted in our identity instead of in the connections between our identities, that we're all, the only way that we can finally see how connected we are is some motherfucker eats a bat. And, you know what I mean? So fucking weird, dude.
You know what's really crazy, man? Think of this. If technology really did have an effect on the programming of human beings, and if human beings interacting with technology think we're innocently interacting with a non-sentient thing, but all the while, this technology, and you could call, we get confused when we think that technology is like a digital clock or a television or a computer. It is, but it's also like a fish hook.
Right.
Like, so it's innovation. Someone had to figure that out. And imagine creating an ape that is aware of its environment. Like, this is like really the perfect storm. Aware of its environment, but obsessed with itself. Knows in the back of its head that it's temporary. It's got a finite lifespan, but lives like it's gonna live forever, and lives in the moment, and wants to acquire things. Like, it seems the number one goal for the uber wealthy or the uber successful, the Jeff Bezos types characters, right, who are on the top of the food chain financially, they want to acquire things. Yeah. They're always acquiring things, which means people have to make things, which means that they're a big consumer as well as someone is making a shit ton of money.
Right.
And this also fuels innovation, because you got to keep up with these people. Got to keep giving them bigger and better things every year. So all these resources go into innovation of technology. It's the thing that progresses quicker than anything.
Right.
Look at cell phones. Every year, I need a 150 megapixel camera, or you're a loser.
Yeah.
You're a loser.
Yeah.
You know, these fucking Samsung phones that are like 7-inch screens now, everyone's going crazy, right? But what is the goal, though? The goal is to make better shit. And the goal along the way of like, this goal is, it's working, but it'd be even better if we made it so they don't touch each other anymore. If we could come up with a disease where they can't shake hands, they don't come close.
Right.
And yeah, just keep them a little further apart from each other. It'll make them more interested in the things, more interested in the technology, more separate from each other, and encourage technology that connects them with each other. So through technology, they'll find this human longing for contact that they're missing in their life. They're going to get an emulated version of it, but that emulated version of it is going to keep getting better, and it's going to keep getting better, and it's going to get to a point where it's better than real life, way better than real life, because you're like Jumanji. You get to be the Rock. You know, you get to be like a superhero. Like you could live a magical life with no boundaries of physics. And that they're going to do that. People are going to do that. They're going to give in. If I was a life form that was trying to haunt another life form and trick it into giving birth to me, I would create a person. I'd create people. We're like some fucking ant. We're like some ant that's manufacturing our successors.
Yeah.
That's what we are.
Yeah.
And we don't even know what we're doing. We're just showing up every day. Look at my fucking watches. I got all these diamonds. Ching, ching, ching.
Yeah.
Bling, bling, bitches. My house is bigger than the Rock's. The Rock's house is this big. My house is this big. Like, I mean, that's what people are doing. That's what we're doing. We're just buying more shit. And one good thing of something like this, anytime a tragedy happens, people bond together afterwards. It's a terrible thing that it happened.
Yeah.
But for the victims and the family members of the victims, we all know this. But it can be a good reset for us. Sure. Economically, people are going to have to get through it. That's going to be the most difficult part.
Yeah, it is.
But I think there's going to be an opportunity for us to just assume a nicer stance towards our neighbors and towards our friends and towards our community. And instead of embracing this idea, like, you better get guns because they're coming, maybe we could all come together.
Well, I think people need to find, if that's going to happen, then we've got to find a better metric for whether things are right or wrong than the news.
Yes.
We need something to retune ourselves. Like right now we're tuning the guitar of our identities to like the most terrifying shit, which is the news or like what people are saying. And so if I think many people have become so accustomed to getting their idea of what's happening in reality from the TV instead of from like how they feel inside, what's going on with their friends and their family, that puts people at an incredible disadvantage because their pond is being rippled by shit. You know, I was thinking it's like, what are those little, not prairie dogs, they stand and look around at the hawks. You know what I'm talking about? What are those things called? They're social little marmots or something like that.
Oh, okay.
You know, there was a show like Lemur Palace. I don't remember what they're called, something, but they're really
cute. I see them at the zoo.
They're fucking adorable.
They're one of the most adorable animals ever.
They stand and look. Yeah. Somehow they ignore all the humans around them and just look in the sky for a hawk. It's kind of sad, but
that's their life, though.
But imagine if that one looking for the hawk had like the internet and could see hawks thousands of miles away. How anxious all of them would be, because he would always be like, get underground, get underground, get underground. Nice. So, you know, I think this is what has happened, is that we're all constantly being told. I mean, I remember when I was growing up in the old days, when the news had an alert, that was serious, some serious shit like that. You would be, what the fuck? Fox News or any of the news stations, they have an alert like every 4 minutes now. Alert, alert. And it's all telling us just what you're saying. Get underground, go inside, danger out here. And so we're all like, even before this shit, we were huddled up a little bit. Now we can rationalize the huddling, you know, and that's what we're doing. We're just huddling inside right now. That's an incredibly vulnerable place to be. I mean, I'm not going to get conspiratorial here, but
if I was the artificial intelligence and I was about to hit the switch and become sentient, I would want to remove the threat of human beings as much as possible before I hit the switch.
Put them in.
And this is the best way. You make them sick.
I'm about to give birth.
Make them get sick, confuse them, keep them poor, and then boom, it comes out of nowhere.
And then what? Then
they just start eating us because we're fuel.
They're not gonna eat us.
Do you know who came up with that? Do you know that was a DARPA project?
What?
EATR robots. They were robots that survived on biological, air quotes, biological material. So like maybe they could eat plants or babies, whatever's around.
I need a friend at DARPA.
I mean, they made robots that eat tissue. This is. Do robots eat people?
Please
Either
tell me
does,
that's not.
and it's a corpse-eating robot. Yes, bro.
What?
Yes.
Why would you paint it playground colors?
It literally will use.
Who at DARPA is like painted like a playground set?
So true. Look at it. The colors. It's ridiculous.
It looks like a kid's toy.
It should look like a vulture. It should be like red and black, like a vulture.
Yeah, it should definitely be black, red, lightning bolts on the side.
A nice patina, like a ward-out patina, like it's just going through the battlefield, eating bodies.
Can you imagine getting eaten by a thing that looks like a Tonka
Can you
truck?
imagine if you're not quite dead and it starts chewing you feet first? I mean, how does it determine whether or not you're dead? What if you can make it? What if you're just out cold? What if you got knocked out and it's like a movie? You wake up in the battlefield. And there's a bunch of movies where that happens, right?
Sure.
The guys aren't really dead. They're just badly injured. These motherfuckers.
Yeah.
There's a video right down below of us talking about it. So I was freaked out by eater robots. This happened more than once. I'm fucking terrified of those things. Just the idea that someone made something that can eat people. Well, listen, folks, the technology that existed in like early cell phones, right? Like if someone made an early Motorola phone with a camera, all that stuff got into everything now. There's so many things that can take pictures now. So many phones that can take pictures. If they develop one robot and one like proof of concept where something could be fueled on dead bodies, you don't think other people are going to make those too? You don't think they're going to get better? They're going to get better. And then when we do go to war with the robots and there's big, giant, bulletproof metal ones just eating us and using us as fuel, we're going to be like, what have we done? What have we done? We've created a thing that eats people. And even if it's just the baby right now, that thing could evolve to become something that literally is the thing of nightmares in a Stephen King movie.
Sure.
Where it's just running around looking for people, eating people. It's a Black Mirror episode gone wrong.
Man.
Or right.
To me, I just like to think about the meeting where the guy was like, last night I woke up in the middle of the night with this idea. I got it, y'all. What if we make a robot that devours corpses? And somebody was like, you know what, I kind of like that. Jake, let's put 50 million into that project, see what we can do.
Jesus.
Yeah, just imagine like, this is the other thing, man, is like, we somehow imagine that thing that made Genghis Khan is like now out of people. Like there isn't somebody on the planet right now that has the same ambition as a warlord. You know, we somehow forget that. See, I just think people don't understand that. Like, there's this idea that the world leaders are just, humanists, and that the interest of humanity is the first thing they're thinking about when they wake up every day. We don't know that some of them aren't interested in the same thing every conquering warlord has been interested. We're just like, maybe we could take over the planet. I wonder if there's a way, and imagine if you ended up president of the United States, or like president of Russia, or president of any powerful wherever. So maybe when you're high one night, I don't know if they get high, but I would, or maybe when you're like just like thinking, wouldn't it flicker through your mind kind of like, I wonder if there would be a way to take over the world. I wonder if there's a way that I could become the king of Earth. Because, when you look up there in the sky, I'm sure there's many Earths out there that have one king, one ruler, someone who conquered the entire planet, someone who figured out a way to do it, why couldn't you? That's the other thing. I mean, what's stopping that from happening one day? There being one primary authority, some imperial majesty.
We are all one, Duncan.
I know.
Yeah, if we were all one, but we just have to get rid of some of our laws. Other people are not going to accept our laws, okay? We just got to tighten that up a little bit, and we can have one ruler of the whole planet.
Yeah.
And we're going to fix everything by working together. We're going to evenly distribute resources. It's going to be better.
Italy this evening, it just gets worse. The death toll now worse than China, 427 deaths in just the past 24 hours. And the infections have not slowed down yet. The number of infections rising again tonight. In this image this evening, a procession of military trucks carrying the dead from one hard-hit city to another because the crematoriums are overwhelmed. ABC's James Longman on what U.S. authorities are now watching from afar, knowing they could soon face some of the very same tests.
Tonight, chilling new video from Italy's front lines as a deadly milestone is reached. The country today recording more coronavirus deaths than China. Over 3,400 now dead, 427 more fatalities in just one day, and a 15% increase in infections over yesterday. The curve just won't flatten. This desperate plea from a doctor in hard-hit Bergamo.
Our health personnel, nurses and physicians are working round the clock, countless hours to fight this incredible situation.
Tonight, 300 volunteer doctors now being rushed in from other parts of the country to help. Even Bergamo's crematorium is overwhelmed. Bodies now have to be transported by the military to surrounding regions to be dealt with safely. This nurse saying the psychological tension has, quote, gone through the roof. We're not even counting the dead anymore, she says. Doctors also making the ultimate sacrifice. One physician, sick with the virus, reportedly didn't want to take an intensive care bed from another patient. It cost him his life. Darkness in Italy and Spain, suffering nearly 300 deaths in the past 24 hours. But glimmers of light from China, reporting no new domestic cases. A long road ahead for other nations facing Corona's deadly wave.
And James Longman with us live from London tonight. And James, you've been to Italy 3 times since the outbreak began.
Stop chasing the fucking cat.
Italy has reported the highest one-day death toll from coronavirus than any other country. Officials said nearly 500 people died on Wednesday. Videos posted on social media are said to show military trucks in the city of Bergamo preparing to transport the dead to nearby cities. Mortuaries and crematoriums in Bergamo have run out of space. Medical teams from China have arrived to help authorities fight the virus. The governor of Italy's hardest hit region made this appeal to medical students and retired healthcare workers.
I want to appeal to all of these doctors and nurses. Make yourselves available and lend us a hand in these trying times. In my opinion, through the cooperation and availability of these professional health workers, we can find important answers to the challenges we face.
Let's bring in journalist Seema Gupta, who's standing by for us in Rome. Seema, dramatic scenes there in northern Italy. The governor calling for help. Does he get the support he needs?
Well, that's what the governor of Lombardy is actually saying. I mean, he's made it very clear, look, warning that at this stage, we may reach a situation soon where they won't be able to treat the sick at all. And he's calling on the residents in Lombardy, but also all around the country to essentially stay at home. And that's the message of the Prime Minister as well. He gave an interview to a local daily here, essentially saying that the country and the measures that they're going to take, they expect them to get even stricter. A complete block is what they're suggesting. The Sports Minister has already said that he's looking towards the idea of stopping all outdoor activity. That means no more any walks or or jogging in the park simply because they need to stay at home in order to limit the spread of COVID-19. There is also word that the school closure will be extended beyond April 3rd, and that's because also we've seen 43,000 violations of the lockdown measure in the space of 1 week, and the authorities and officials are imploring people to listen to the rules, stay at home, practice social distancing, only leave home when it's absolutely necessary. They're very concerned, as you said, we've seen these dramatic and immense numbers of the dead, just 475 dead with COVID-19 in the space of 24 hours. And it's because of that, I think, that the authorities believe that the next week or so is very crucial. The peak infection rate still has not been reached here in Italy.
Now, as you say, I mean, people there, also where you are further south, are faced with those incredibly dramatic images from northern Italy. Will that help to convince people to actually adhere to what the authorities tell them to do or not to do?
Well, that's what the authorities are hoping for. That's what the doctors are imploring. We see frontline medical professionals going on social media, imploring everyone, showing them, we go to work to save lives. You do your part. Stay at home. That seems to be the message that they're sending out. Here in Rome, for the most part, you do see people adhering to this. It's frustrating for people to be stuck at home. We're now into day 9 of the lockdown. Families at home with their children having to deal with work on the one hand, as well as dealing with their children's schoolwork, trying to juggle all of that and manage. It's not easy, but if everyone does their part, as everyone keeps saying, we're all in the same boat. And so if everyone does their part, this will help limit the spread, not just up north, but also for the rest of the country that is also preparing for a rise in infections. Now, you talk about the doctors, the military has been brought in to help with that, but also they fast-tracked the graduation of medical students.
All right, Seema Gupta there reporting for us from Rome. Thank you so much. Britain has also stepped up its response to the coronavirus. The Prime Minister announced that up to 20,000 military personnel will be put on standby. The United Kingdom is bracing for the stringent measures that will come into effect on Friday. In addition to schools, dozens of underground stations will be closed. Other public transport services will also be reduced. The government has advised people not to go to pubs and restaurants, though an official ban is not in effect. Let's cross over now to London, where DW correspondent Birgit Maas is covering developments for us. Birgit, London, of course, is a big, huge city, and it's now facing strict containment measures which the military could help to enforce. How are Londoners coping?
Well, there is a sense of doom, I would say, across London, because I think a lot of people are expecting this to get even tighter and maybe into a complete lockdown. At least this is the speculation in the media and on social media. So we might really see Londoners being confined to their homes. And what you see at the moment is that people are trying to go and shop as much as they can. So if you go into the supermarket in the afternoon, the shelves are really, really empty because people are expecting that there will be shortages in the future. Of course, the authorities are saying it's because the demand is so much. It's not that there is no supply of essential items like toilet paper or even food. It's because people are buying too much and they should stop it. But at the moment, it doesn't seem that people are adhering to this advice because people are frankly very nervous of what's to come.
All right. Well, people not following advice, we've seen that across Europe now. And as of tomorrow, schools all over the country will be closed. Did Prime Minister Boris Johnson take this step too late, perhaps, as his critics claim?
Yes, there has been a lot of criticism towards the government. There was, for example, the editor-in-chief of The Lancet, a leading medical...
Please do not do that. Stop that behavior. Stop it. She looks little, but she's vicious. Half and half was like a second away from your eye. This one, like a second away.
check. Is it me or is it hot in here? Check, check. Check, check. Let's see. Bam, bada, bam, bam. Bam, bada, bam, bam. Mate. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check. Mate. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check. All right, so we good. We good with the voice right now.